Righto, we're doing it. The Chad Reed podcast. This has been one that I was just saying to you before, you're like the first guest I've like actually pestered to be like, dude, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this.
Yeah, I think the first time we communicated was through Jeremy at Red Bull. Yeah. Right before, I think I just had literally landed in Australia for Bathurst.
Yeah.
And it's tough, you know, because it's like,
that weekend for you would have been crazy.
You know, like you get a million emails, and certain emails you kind of take a little more serious than others. And Jeremy's been a huge advocate in helping me out, you know, in 2018. So, you know, you kind of go through, you read it, and it's kind of like, you know, you almost feel bad because it's like I literally, you know, we touched base, and I was like, you know, he hit the ground running, and I was doing photo shoot and video shoot and then you know, all this stuff out there. So, I mean, I think we did pretty well. We're about 3-4 weeks later, and here we are doing it, where we're knuckling it down. And you know, you're here in Newcastle, so it's awesome. I think it worked out well. It's
one of these ones for me where like, and we sort of just briefly spoke about it, but like I moved to the US in 2012. And I've worked with everyone. I've met everyone. Like pretty much Villo is like the only dude I haven't like really worked with properly on the film side, and you. And there's like these stages, right? There's like, I'm a kid in Australia that's racing motocross, full blown fucking Chad Reed superfan. So I went through that stage, and then you do the motocross, like the industry thing. And then there's that stage. And then with guys like Ricky and even James, I got to be like pretty close with through working. Me and Ricky went to like Costa Rica and hung out a bunch. And then you get into like the inside of it. And then you're like, okay, cool. So there's like the 3 stages. But with you, I always just got stuck in like the industry stage, seeing you at arm's distance and like, dude, know you through like Nate and Jared and obviously Jeremy. So it's like, but I never got that other side to where,
and obviously I'm very aware of who you are and what you do, and obviously this is new for you, but not really, you know, it's not like you put that wall up and
it's just like how it works.
It's just how it works, you know. And I think you probably appreciate more than anything that, you know, 17 races in 18 weeks, a weekend off, and then roll into 12 outdoors, you know, living that life for the past 17 years.
Dude, I got over it, and I never rode a bike there. Yeah. Like for real. I used to say that to people. Like I always say like a funny story of that is like, when I was a kid, I just wanted to go to Redbud so bad. That was like the sickest shit ever. And the first time I got to Redbud, it's 8 races into the series or whatever.
You're already over it.
I fucking watched it in the TV, in the JDR truck. I was like, dude, it's too hot. I'm over it. Like I did my filming and then I was like, I'm out. And
if you really lived it and you did Redbud ride, you know, you probably had a pounding headache from the night before.
Credit to Wes Williams.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so
it gets hard, man.
It does. It is hard, and you know, and I think that we've been lucky enough to cross path on some fun experiences and fun weekends. But I think that there are all weekends that you kind of let your hair down, and you're not really, you know, the least thing that you want to do is actually be in any form of, you know, doing an interview or you know, something like that. So it's kind of like you turn everything off and you go and have fun at MotoGP. It's like that one weekend a year, you know, in April that you get to have fun. And so I mean, it's just you live and breathe it, and for good or bad. And I guess when I look at RV, you know, knowing RV and being teammates with RV and things like that, we're so different, but yet very similar in some ways, in the fact that, you know, it's like you put a helmet on and it's serious and it's race day and it's game on, and but take your helmet off and you get out of that environment, not so much just take the helmet off, because no matter what, like, you're always on the clock, you know. I think that's the hardest thing, is take the helmet off, put another hat on.
There's always expectation.
There's
always a lot of expectation from you guys, and even like to do this, it's like there's like, in a certain way, like, and I know what it's like, but there's even expectation from me. I'm like, dude, this would be really good. Like, I sent you that email yesterday. I'm like, it's going to be fun, blah, 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 blah. Like, and there's an expectation on my end even. It's like, oh, this would be great. And it's like, well, everybody thinks, come do this photo shoot or let's do this edit. It's going to be great. But it's like, it's sort of one-sided. And a lot of these relationships that you get in on like the working end, whether it's like a sponsor or getting a mate passes, it's super one-sided. And there's sometimes like kind of unfair expectations. And I think maybe like I've been able to see the both sides of that, where it's like you've you've been on the inside enough to know the scenarios, really. You know, like I always think that it's difficult to judge somebody, you know, by meeting them in a certain environment, a brief moment, you know, and I always, like, I take Valentino as a perfect example for me, you know, somebody who away from the races, you know, during the week, whatever, like we can call each other, we can text each other, all these things, and then you meet him on the weekends. That's a different dude. You know, the lights are on and no one's home, you know. He engages at a level that I can understand because I do it myself. But there's you know, like the brain's ticking, you know, like he's there, but he's elsewhere, you know. And I think that like as I get older and as I maybe become a little bit more aware of what I'm even doing, you know, because you don't realize you're doing it, but when you start to be around these people that are, you know, equally going through the same things that you are, it's really interesting to me, you know. And it's like I noticed it a lot this year at MotoGP, you know, like I kind of just different things, you know, like I could see the gears ticking over. The gears ticking over, and you know, and you see the time that he spent with me, the time that he spent with my kids and my wife, and it was like it was a you know, he wanted to do it and he was there, but there's a part of it that's not there at all. There was a job to it. There was a routine, because, you know, though he engaged with us a lot, there was still 5-6 other people or obligations that he had, you know, people like basically, you know, his Yamaha people or his manager or somebody, okay, this one. So then it really made me, you know, because I was on holiday mode, I guess, maybe more than anything, I really got to see that, like the reality of what's actually the reality going on, of how it's really happening. And then you could probably relate to doing that yourself at times, right? Totally. And that's what made me realize, like, that's what I do, you know, like it clicked right then and there, and I was aware more of what I do, and it's not something you choose to do. I just think it's something that it's probably why we can do it, you know. Like if you look at, you know, Casey Stoner, hates it, who refuses to do this podcast, refuses. I mean, like he's just not into it. I don't know the background, but you probably he's like a super nice dude, and he like rides mountain bikes with my brother, and he's just no desire to do this. He's like, you know. And I just think that there's certain people and certain ways of thinking, certain, I didn't even know what it is, personality maybe, but he's just like that. He's done there. That book's been ticked, and that box is, you know, he's moved on from it. And well, there's weird things that happen too with like even this podcast, right? So like I started it, thought literally nothing of it. Like I come home, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be in Australia now full time, and I don't have film work. I've been in America for like 8 years. So I'm like, everyone else like will have their dudes doing it. So I'm just going to have to be cool with doing nothing for a little bit until some balls start rolling. And then it's like I do this, and then now it's this thing, and I'm like, fuck, I didn't expect any of this, like, and some of it I don't want at all. But you're like, well, it's too late, because the stuff that you do like, which is this two people sitting down talking, comes now with other stuff. And I feel like racing's the same. And like if you talk to Casey Stoner, like that's just a dude from regional Australia, much like yourself, and then it's like you get to this point where you're like this international superstar where it changes. The thing that it was at the start, it's like this unintended kind of side things that come with the thing that you originally wanted to do. It's like all these fringe expectations and shit. And it's like, for some people, they're just like, nah, fuck, I'm out. Too much. Yeah, and I think it's how you
it's how you deal with it, I guess, you know, and I don't think that there's a right way or a wrong way, because in my opinion, whatever's true to you is what's true to you. And if you feel one way about it, and clearly Casey has a way, and I'm 36 years old and still doing it, and I in some ways there's parts of it where you're, you know, like in this scenario, it's like I'm in my hometown. Probably my first time back to my hometown since 2016 with my family. So it's like, when you look at the big picture, do I want to be doing an interview in a studio for a couple hours, you know, and my family's off, and this is basically a day gone?
Yeah.
You could look at it and go, no, I don't want to do that. But then it's like, life's quick. You got to get out there and you got to embrace these moments, I think, you know, and that's maybe what's different from Casey and I. You know, there's so many ups and downs and good and bad and ugly within the sport or within whatever your chosen thing is. But for me, as I get older, like, I'm learning to be more appreciative of it. And I probably have a clearer reality on, you know, how and why I dealt with things when I was younger, opposed to being able to deal with them maybe a little differently now. So yeah, like, I don't know that there's a sense of the clock's ticking a little bit. Yeah. And you just, I don't know, you feel like you take it on a little more. You learn to enjoy it. Because I think once it's gone, it's gone. I don't know that I don't know that you know, I'm sure that there's a wave you ride for a little bit, but you know, at a certain point, you're, you know, once you're at the top of your game and you're doing your thing, and then you retire, you quit, or whatever you move on to next, is, you know, it's over at that point. I
think, man, like, and again, the fact that I've stated that I haven't spent a lot of time with you in this context at all, but like, from the outside looking in, I feel like, and I think other people I've spoken to as well have said that there's like a different mentality with you across the board these days to maybe that 2006 to 2010 sort of time frame, I guess, being like a random time frame where it was like you're at the top, and it has to do with age, right? And more experience in dealing with situations that come up, because a lot of times it's the same situation, man. Like, you're racing the same people, you're dealing with the same contracts, you're dealing with the same team managers, same, you know, people that you're racing against, but your reaction to them changes as you get older.
Yeah.
And people have commented, and like, especially like even Hammer, like when he was sort of trying to help you get a bunch of stuff sorted, he's like, dude, like, I had an opinion of Chad that's completely different but based on time and knowing. And I think that there was always an element with you that I think was like crazy calculated. And I wondered if like you kept people on like or you kept a tight circle, and then especially when social media came around, it was like you just like drip feed what you want. And it seemed like you always had like a little bit of beef with someone, but it wasn't enough beef to completely blow up, but it like kept us captivated. And there was these rivalries, and there was these things that you'd say, and I always wondered, like, is this just like a reckless dude that like doesn't give a fuck and just like is doing whatever, shooting from the hip? Or is this like a calculated guy that knows how to play all of us and drip feed all these little things? And that's why we have Chad Reed having the longest autograph line in a country that he's not even from. So I'm like, what exactly was the plan here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can say that there was a plan ever. But I think that, you know, very early on you figure out quickly, like, if I'm to rewind, you know, all the way back from going from Aus to Europe, you know, what I dealt with in Europe, everybody was happy for you, you know, like, the culture was very different, you know, everybody was friendly, everybody embraced and applauded you for a job well done. When I went from there to the US, and people wanted to
almost like bring you down almost.
Pick apart, I would say. Pick apart words. You know, like, say I said, you know, I mean, a very common one back then was me making comments on that I didn't like the 250F or didn't like the lights class as we know it today.
Yeah.
Immediately everyone was like, basically like, he thinks he's hot shit.
Yeah.
He thinks he's too cool. He's cocky. He wants to go race Ricky Carmichael, blah, blah, blah. Nobody took into consideration that I had never raced the lights class as a professional. I had spent 98, 99, 2000, 2001, so 4 years racing 252 strokes. I was a 2-time Supercross champion in Australia. My first year abroad in Europe, I was second in the World Championship. I mean, at that point, I honestly believe that I have the credentials enough
to just go straight in.
And so like each thing that I would, you know, comment honestly, you know, honesty can be your best friend and your worst enemy, especially in the US. And it was the first time in my life and my career that I was finding that people were taking things massively out of context, and they didn't necessarily always take the first word or last word or somewhere in the middle. They would just, they'd want to,
very convenient.
They would be very conveniently pick out words. And I see, and it's the world we live in now. Like that's
it's even worse now
like
than what it would have been.
Oh my gosh, it's unbelievably bad. I mean, probably the worst way to put it, but like I see things written about Trump and the things that they take, and like if you actually watch the interview and then you watch what becomes the headline, you're like, how did we pull that? How did we get here? How did we get there? Yeah. And so, though Trump's a terrible comparison, it's a way that, like, for me as a 19-year-old kid, you know, that was on this just unbelievably steep learning curve. It was tough, you know. So you kind of go into your shell and you put your guard up right away. Yeah. You know, and I think that basically those early days and how I got treated, how I got you know, seen, and my words being picked apart, made me aware of it. Didn't, you know, like my goal never changed. Like the goal was always, you know, okay, they don't like the things that I say, but that's me, and that's truly me. You know, like if you ask me a question, 9 times out of 10, I feel like I answer it honestly, and I give you an answer where other people maybe give it in a different content and
like kind of dance around it and be politically correct.
Maybe that's not, you know, maybe it's not right or wrong, but it's just not, for me, that's not true to me. You know, like that's, you ask me something and I tell you what the answer is, you know. People love that, people hate that. And I think that over years, I went through a stage where they hated it, but now it seems more like people embrace who I am, what I bring to the table, you know, and I think that people see more the positive side of it. I've obviously learned to shine light more on the positive side of it. But yeah, like all along, it was just, you know, giving people just enough that they loved it or hated it. It really wasn't a game. It wasn't something that I sat down with somebody and planned, but more just that feeling of, I'm just going to give you enough, you know, like you kind of hold everybody at arm's length.
Yeah. And that's honestly the impression that I got. Yeah. And like, man, like I'll admit straight up that I was like, I looked for reasons to not like Chad Reed when I was in America, because, and there was a part of it too, like honestly I was thinking about it last night and I was like, you know what, like I'm going to be fucking super honest in this podcast. And again, like I think people enjoy that. And I think like I was thinking about it and I was like, man, like dude never really did anything to me. There was never any real beef there, or like there was no reason. There was like barely, you know, not even on your radar. Yeah. But I actively looked for a reason not to like you. And I think that there was a part of me that was like excited to be this Australian in America. And yeah, I wasn't racing, but I felt like I was killing it in my own right. Mm-hmm. And you were like the godfather of that. Mm-hmm. And to me, I was like, oh, fucking, I wanted to share that feeling of like sticking it to the Americans and, You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
Aussie kind of underdog spirit, and it just, I didn't get that, and I was like, oh man, like fuck Chad Reed, you know what I mean? And it was like, and I'd get it from people that I just didn't even want it from, and
I think that's a very Aussie way.
It's
and
full on,
I'm not,
like,
I'm
it's
not
true.
exempt for that either. You know, like I probably more times than not revert to that way of thinking because it becomes so natural because you're just,
it's easy to put it on someone else.
You're instilled with it from a kid, because I think that, you know, like one thing I really struggle with is that tall poppy syndrome here in Aussie, you know.
Dude,
like it's, you know, like they love you on the way up, and then you get to that point and then they hate you for all the same things that they loved you for on the way up.
Yeah.
And so when you start getting some heat from your country, your people, you become, I don't know, that you just, you become,
it's like a weird feeling.
You become a little bit more, like you put yourself in a box, and I feel like the arm's length isn't one way. US people, American, you know, Australian people, it just becomes something that you just want to insulate yourself. You want to, you totally want to insulate yourself from it, you know. And I was always fortunate that I always kept a small crew, you know. You know, obviously Ellie's been there from the beginning, you know, right from the early days. Truthfully, one of the biggest things that we had against us was my mum and dad. So when you have family members going against you, I just think that you start off immediately the Aussie way of thinking of fuck everybody. I'm going to prove the world that we can do this. So I think starting off on that foot, the Aussie way of thinking, got me to where I am today.
But it comes with a bit of baggage personally you have to start to share.
It definitely come with baggage, and it come with a way of thinking of, you know, not letting anybody in because it was you and it was me and Ellie versus the world. And so,
which that's productive.
You know,
like when you really have that mindset, like it honestly is, dude.
It worked.
Yeah, it does, man.
You know, like it got me to this point.
And that's why I think that people use that for fuel. And like I always, like historically, your best seasons were always when people expected you to do the worst.
Yeah, and I think that whenever
there's an energy that comes with that, right?
Totally. Whenever I've had my back up against the wall is typically when things have gone more right than wrong. And I think that we're, you know, if we're talking present, I think coming off of 18, like it was just a horrendous year. And I think that the easy thing to go up against is like everybody forgets. I don't know that they forget, but they so easily want to say, well, he's 36 years old, you know? And I can honestly say, and until I'm proven wrong, or at least until I lose faith in, I don't think that I sit here today any less competitive, less strong, less aggressive, like whatever it is, than when I sat here at 25 years old, when I was Supercross champion last, or when I was 28, or when I was 30 or 32. Some of my best years have been post 30.
Was it what was that? 2012? Was that the year you hurt your knee?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that like
you chipped away at my ice heart that year.
2012. I think I go on and be champion. I really do.
Dude, it was. I was right there. I was right there when you crashed, bro.
Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck! You and Villapoto were just sending it,
and it was fun. It was one of those moments, one of those years. I was in great shape. But for me, it's not always about my shape. Like we all talk about like how physical the sport is and things like that. For me, it's the feedback you get from the bike, you know, feeling one with the bike and just feeling like whatever you instinctly think in that split second.
It's going to do what you think.
And you get that feedback just going, give me more, you know, like that 2012, you know, Honda was just ridiculously good. I really think that we were just starting to get on a, you know, on a bit
like
of
momentum.
There was totally momentum, you know, like I mean, geez, at that point we were only round 6, 7 in, because we had just gone east. So we're 6 races in or whatever it is, and RV and I had left third place behind. When you're talking about third place being Dungey, Stewart, I think even Eli was, maybe not Eli. Eli wasn't there yet.
Was that his last year? I think it was his last year in the last
class. Something like that. But, Wyndham was still around, but just, we'd just separated ourselves, and we were kind of going to that next level, and nobody had come there yet. To blow out my knee at that point, I think I was 2 points down to, RV at that point. So
did you win San Diego that year as well?
We went all the way down to the last lap. I think I led it most of the way, or maybe I passed him 2 laps to go, and he passed me back on the last lap.
Because I remember that being a crazy race, but I can't remember who. I want to say
I passed him maybe with 2 to go, and then he got me back on the last lap. So so carrying that frustration of so close but embracing it, and
well, it seemed like you were thriving on everything that year. You were thriving on the fact that you were 2-2. You were thriving on the fact that you were sticking it to everybody again. You found yourself in that position where you're I'm fucking buying a semi. I'm putting my own crew together, and then you sort of have to make it work at that point, financially as well. Then you got the sponsor side of things. So it seemed like that really got the best out of you. You weren't jaded by the logistics of it, and you weren't jaded by the money out of the bank account. Yeah,
no, because at that point of 2-2, that was 2-2's best point.
Yeah,
year one, we threw it together all quickly. It was all amazing. But year 2, I had just signed a 2-year deal with Honda. 2-2, motorsports had moved from basically my mechanic Lars's, garage, into the Honda, race facility in Torrance. And, so we were doing everything right, it was bare minimum on a cost, so as far as how 2-2 Motorsports as first, beginning to end, that was the strongest that we were, we had good sponsors in Bel-Ray, and I want to say that Discount Tire came on it as an associate sponsor for the first time, and they grew from there, but at that point they were just really small. But Bel-Ray was awesome at that point, but Honda was all bikes, parts, engines, shipping, race shop, bonuses, everything was there for me. So I was essentially, I was Honda's lead guy, I was their guy. I wasn't under their HRC banner, but I was their guy. So amazing year, so to get hurt really stung, when you really felt
that's the one that got away.
That's the one that got away, and it was, it hurt more because, probably up until, my current ankle injury that I had, but that at that point in my career, it was by far my worst injury that I'd ever sustained. I'd never had anything, wrong with my knees. It was just, I'd been really lucky to have, a couple of shoulder injuries here and there, but not really a whole lot of injuries that took me out of season long. So I missed the rest of Supercross and then all of outdoors. So it was tough. And then probably what made it tougher is coming back from that knee injury was way harder than I anticipated. And then when I got back on the bike, I got back on the new bike, which was the 13.
Not as good.
And it was just, I say it, and it's not a matter of me beating up on Honda or anything, but I go from a bike that literally felt like it was engineered and designed around me to getting on a motorcycle that essentially I'd heard nothing but positive things, that it was better, it did this better, it did that better, and it was just the biggest pile of shit I'd ever ridden in my life. And I was just like, this is what happened, and then you're kind of scratching your head, everybody prior to me that had rode the bike was, it's good, and you'd only heard positive reviews, and I went one lap on it and pulled in, and I immediately had questions, you know.
Really?
So I think that from that, I guess what makes me probably more proud is I stuck. Like it wasn't like I came in, it was awesome, and then it went to shit because of my own results or me not feeling it. Like literally, I went one lap and pulled in, and I asked the guys, "Is this? Is this that?"
Yeah.
You know, like throwing questions all at them, and immediately I think everybody around me on 2.2 and Honda knew that it was going to be difficult because, you know, a lot of the things that I complained about and a lot of the things that I made aware to them wasn't, you know,
an easy fix.
Wasn't easy fixes.
Yeah. And dude, like, I mean, fuck, hopefully you'll admit this, but so many people will ride like, oh, I'm going to go ride this new James did it. I'm going to go ride this new Yamaha. Oh, fuck. How good is this thing? This is the bike. And it's like it's like a new chick, man. Everyone's just like, dude, she's so fucking hot. There's nothing wrong with this chick. Like, oh, she does everything right. And it's like 3 months in and you're just like, fuck this chick right now, you know? So, and like, but people don't want to admit that. They're like, so I guess for you to honestly say, no, day one, this bike was a turd.
And I think, because
how many people do that? They go to like a new thing and they're like, this is amazing.
And it's just right away the honeymoon stage.
It's full honeymoon and they can't be objective.
And truthfully, I was excited, you know, like I was, you know, like you'd seen pictures of it and, you know, you kind of like, wow, you know, like there's this new bike. It's got two.
Was that like a full redesign?
It was a full redesign, yeah.
So there's no way you can just go 12
engine,
to 30.
I want to say engine was really, actually I think engine bolted in. But chassis was the biggest thing. It was all chassis. Unfortunately, the chassis just didn't work quite the same. Ergonomically, it never felt the same either. As immediately sitting on it, it was different. But that's the you know, the good and bad about new bikes coming, you know, and that's what's so scary about it. Everybody gets so excited about new bikes. New bikes scare me probably because I've been on the less fortunate side, you know, like, and maybe that was even just a re-stimulation of older years as well. I mean, I went from 04 to 05, you know, and we got told at Yamaha that this new aluminum frame bike, it was going to be underweight. We're going to have to add weight to it. It was going to be all the same. Yamaha did something unbelievably amazing where they figured out aluminum that no one else could. And, you know, and
they sold it hard.
They sold it hard. And then immediately same thing, you know, first day riding the bike, we struggled, got to get to a point where, okay, now it's rideable, you know, we go back on to the 04, and then that's when you're like, oh my gosh, like we're not even close. And I think the general consensus of, you know, myself, Villeman, and Ferry at that point were like, we all not good, you know. So they basically took that 04 bike, okay, get that out of here, we'll never ride that bike again. So so, you know, 04 it happened, you know, it happened again in 13.
Is it just something that like you can't get over? Because like I was literally at Ricky's place one day when Dunge was like arguing over like half a mil a sag and Ricky just fucking lit him up, dude. And it was like the best thing I've ever seen. And then Ricky just went off about like, just fucking ride the bike, you know, like gave him a serve. And it was like, it's hot. What is that going to do? But it's like, I don't know, like Ricky rode through, like it almost seemed like he didn't care. But like, I don't know, like is there guys where it's just the style's so different, like you're so fluid and smooth and Ricky's just that charger dude. And like you sort of see it with Tomac, where I feel like Tomac's just the kind of guy that's just going to turn it with the back wheel, just fucking bury the throttle, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
But is it just styles to where like you're the kind of guy that couldn't really overcome that stuff?
Ricky, on the complete opposites of spectrum, I think that Ricky was equally one of the most frustrating people to race because of his strength of being able to
just ride whatever,
just make it work. I didn't even know that you'd say ride whatever because he essentially set it up like that.
Yeah.
When I look at Dunge, me and Dunge, and I probably know more than anything because when we were teammates at Suzuki, we, you know, like if let's say there's a setup or a family that, you know, like me and Ricky, as far as like clamps and chassis, like when you talk about like chassis flex and clamp flex and, you know, swing arm, your linkages and things like that, Ricky and I were spot on. Like whatever he chose is what I chose, vice versa. And also Dunge was in that same window. But when you start comparing suspension, Ricky, you know, so left field, you know, like me and Dunge, you know, like our bikes so much different than what Ricky does. And I think that Ricky in his own way was probably pretty picky about, I mean, when you look at the way his bike was set up, I don't know that some suspension guy
would have done that,
can get it that wrong.
Yeah.
Really, when you think about it, like when you think about how a motorcycle works and how it gets around a track, you don't go, okay, we're going to give you this, Ricky. So, I mean, he took them down that road.
Fuck, there'd be some weird, dark, scary monsters in those woods.
Yeah, and I think that Ricky was, you know, the years that Ricky had really horrendous motorcycles, I think he was really, I wouldn't use the word luck because I don't really necessarily believe in being lucky. Not
with the amount of winning he did.
But the timing of events and competition, I think he was really in the right place at the right time when he had his 02 Honda, his 03 Honda. I think, you know, had I not have made, you know, rookie and just really clearly stupid, dumb ass rookie mistakes too, you know, I got 2 6th places. I think that the bike and tires bite him in the ass and he gets beat, you know. But he was always so clever in knowing, basically like the Texas Hold'em, I guess, knowing when to hold and when to fold and kind of thing, you know. And he won enough to be able to control a rookie, you know. I think. Did
he get in your head that first year too? Like,
nah, not the first year. I think the first year.
You were just so fucking.
I was just
into it.
Yeah, like, you know, like even when I finished 6th, you know, like you'd come back, you'd just be mad at the world and come back swinging for more. The only thing I would probably say is you want to beat somebody so bad that you lose sight of how
the war to win the battle, like, kind of thing.
Yeah. Like I think of the one weekend was Minneapolis 03. I was just so much better and faster and you know, basically passed him right away, pulled away, and just didn't have that, like, pull back a little bit to get the job done. Just
you just had a point to prove.
Like, yeah, I didn't even know that you'd call it a point, but just when everything's clicking and it's all happening, sometimes that is the time to take a step back and win by 5 seconds or 2 seconds. You don't need to win by 20. But in that particular weekend, like, I was so much better that I probably could have won by 10, 15 seconds. But I just kept, you know, asking more of the bike, asking more of the tires, asking more from the track. And then at some point you're going to find the limit. And yeah, I found it twice. So, yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, I'm really glad that, like, it seemed like, and again, this was like, I don't know how much of this was even real or how much of this was like just giving people enough, but it seemed like there was like a super legit rivalry between you two, and there was like a lot of times where you just straight didn't like each other. And now you guys are like always going back and forth on Instagram, and it's like, to me, I think it's cool because it's like there's you, there's Ricky, and there's James that were the top of the sport. I feel like everyone that's come after that, whether it's like Dunge and RV, it's like they're just this little tiny level down on like the superstardom, the money, the private jet era, the competition that you guys had was just like so fucking intense that's all we saw. And I think, like, you know, there were so many great dudes like Dave Villman, Tim Ferry, and Andrew Short, and like I just want to watch these 2 dudes and then these 3 dudes. And it was like, no one else can relate to what you guys went to except you three. James is a fucking write-off. Like, we're not, we can't really even go there anymore. So now that just leaves you and Ricky as these two dudes that really knew what it was like to live through that time and experience the same things. And it's like, if you two never kind of like made up and became friends, you're on a fucking island, bro. Like, who are you going to talk to about the craziest, like some of the craziest shit that's ever happened in Supercross?
Yeah, I think I didn't know that I would ever use the words like Ricky and I never felt that Ricky and I had hate for each other. We just had this insane competitiveness about us, and that never got turned off, There was always a massive amount of respect, like when you look at the big picture, once upon a time it was only 99, 2000. I had Ricky's, old Oakley poster where he does that massive whip in my room.
And then 3 years later, you're racing him.
3 years later, you're racing him. So, like, I just had this ridiculous amount of burning desire to kick his ass. And he had won so much. Like in 2002 when I was here, he went 24-0. It was his first 24-0. And I just remember, like, the whole season, like, dude, like, this guy wins too much, like it's time to somebody to come in.
I can be that guy.
I can beat him. And fortunately I was able, to beat him and get in there and fight with him. And it was just a rivalry and a competitiveness that never, and still to this day, when you're out, having drinks, mucking around, it's still there. We're fortunate that we get to play around and have a good time.
And dude, he's the king of talking shit.
He's definitely
he lives for it.
Yeah. He lives for that, and obviously I embrace it and enjoy it too. So through our commitments through Fox and things like that, we do get to to ride and play it up a little bit, and it's like, soon as we get talking, soon as we get away and you start having a few drinks together, it's always like, and you're being around Ricky, it's not, there's never a small jab. You're swinging for the fences, and you're trying to knock each other out right away. So
dude, just like I always tell people, fun. Like if you want to know about Ricky, spend 5 minutes around him and JH.
Yeah.
Because the way he rips on him, and like he loves that guy. They're best friends, and it's just non-stop, man. And like, yeah.
For one of you, actually, from my understanding, his best friend.
Yeah.
An agent. And JH has him blocked on Instagram, for a long time. I think he's unblocked now, but I think it's
dude, I went to Costa Rica with them for a Fox shoot, and like we were at dinner, and like I can't repeat the story, but he's like, dude, you have to tell that story. I'll ask you after if he's told you that story. But he's like, you have to tell the story, dude. And then JH is like, you make me do this every time, and like he was getting all embarrassed, and he's like, I'm not telling the story. And he just wouldn't stop until he told this like insanely embarrassing story.
Yeah. And
it was just like relentless, and just the entire trip, like we were just fucking losing it.
Yeah. So that's what's always fun, and I just think that.
But so it was never like a legit rivalry, or like a bad blood kind of deal.
I feel like James and I, right from the beginning, it was bad blood. Like it just.
Do you think it was maybe the age thing too? Because you guys
probably
are like really
age.
close.
We're closer in age, although really I'm in the middle. Like the same gap to Ricky.
The middle child always struggles.
Yeah, right. The same gap to Ricky is, I believe, the same gap from me to James. So I don't know. I just think that James was more of a, I don't know how to take it, like, or put it into words. I know that like a lot of things that probably I took to heart or was really like pissed off about was a lot of the racial things you get with James. And I don't necessarily think that James was saying all these things, but a lot of the things saying, like when we would have a rivalry and then the racial stuff would come in.
What kind of racial stuff got said?
More just like, just fact of like that I don't like black people, whatever. And it's
but
like,
you got like Aboriginal heritage.
I was about
right?
to say, with my heritage and my background, probably why I was so sensitive to it, because, you know, my own grandfather was black. So it's like, for me, I grew up loving them.
Yeah.
100%, you know? So like, and actually, in my opinion, James and his family being in moto as African Americans, I just think that that's rad, you know?
Yeah.
Like everything about it. Like you know, growing up, when you're growing up, it's weird because although we're very close in age, he was younger than me, so I never really looked at him as somebody at equal age or whatever. Although we went pro essentially at the same time in America. But yeah, like watching,
like you looked at him as like a kid almost.
Yeah, like watching him grow up and the things that he got to do in like in the magazines and the terraformers and stuff that you see. Like for me, like it was rad, you know. Like so, I was almost more bummed that
when it like
I had
come to time, there was
I had this massive like almost passion and camaraderie with black people, I guess, you know, like from my childhood. And you know, and I almost wanted to be his friend and be cool with him. Yeah. And it was the complete opposite. We just from the very beginning just butted heads, and I think that was hard, you know.
Man, I will say though, like, and obviously, like we had Malcolm on JDR, and so we were around Big James a lot. We were around Malcolm a lot. I was around James a lot as well. Dude, I fucking straight up saw dudes spit on Big James.
Yeah.
Walking through the tunnel. And I was just like, dude, and like I grew up in Cairns. I was the fucking only white kid on my football team until I was like 13 years old. Mm-hmm. So it's like, for me, it was a weird thing because like you'd see like the standard racial sort of like back and forward, but there was almost a lot of it was in jest as like kids, you know what I mean? And like they'd give us shit, we'd give them shit, but it wasn't like a racism thing.
Here, I think it's
different here.
So
it's so much different.
Like I think that it's openly more of a, like, I don't even know how to put it into words because I've been kind of out of it for so long, but like it's more acceptable and it's more, there's like more of a fun.
There's no malice in it.
Yeah.
And it's the same like, but it's the same like tradie talk.
Yeah.
To me, like Australia has banter. Mm-hmm. Like, and it was definitely
and a friendly banter.
Exactly.
Sure.
But you can say the most cunty thing to someone in Australia, and it's like, you fucking cheeky bugger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that, and like for me to see like real racism, like to see someone fucking spit on someone from a stadium and like call insane names to me, I was like, dude, I remember the fucking feeling in my stomach.
Like you almost want to beat those people up, right?
I mean, not even that, man. I was just like horrified.
Yeah.
Like I literally couldn't believe what I just saw, and I felt hurt by it.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, that's just a dude.
Yeah.
Like spat on them like a dog.
Yeah. And I mean, you've been around Big James. He is a dude. You know,
he's
like
fucking funniest dude ever.
He's so rad. You know, like funny. You know, funny enough. All these years later, you know, I got to go and I hope one day James becomes okay with who he is, you know, because I don't, you know, you talk about me holding people at an arm's length.
Oh, bro, they're on another level.
You know, yeah, Stewart's definitely at a different level, but James individually is completely his own individual on taking that to a whole new level.
There's like, I mean, someone said something to me. Maybe it was my mate Sawley actually just said like, how do you go from like being that good and winning and being like, and there was times like, man, I've played golf with him. Like I've hung out with him a bunch. Like he's a fucking nice dude. Mm-hmm. He's a very nice guy when you hang around him. But there's never this point where he does let that guard down. And it's like, to see the way that it was like this slow regression, and you could see it while he was still riding. And I think the last time I hung out with him, I actually almost burned his house down. One of my fucking batteries blew, like one of my camera batteries caught on fire, and we were just talking shit. He's like, hey man, I smell some smoke, and I was like, fuck, that's not good. And I look over, my camera bag's on fire. No. But like, I could even feel then that there's like this real pullback from like everything. And I don't know, man, like maybe he just, like, we don't obviously know what he went through. Like the kid was a superstar.
Yeah.
But on like a crazy level too. And it's like, I wonder how much just affected him over those years, you know?
And that's what I, you know, like earlier saying about like how I started, you know, and really what put me on my back foot and made me want to hold people at bay. You know that there's so much deeper stuff with what he's had to deal with, you know, within the US and how, you know, the stories and the few stories that you hear, and then the few that you've seen, just like you mentioned about his father being spat on and things like that. So you just, you know that there's deep shit there and whatever. And like for me, I hope one day we can go play golf and you know, and hang out in an environment that is completely removed from all that. Because at the end of the day,
again, it's that thing, like you guys can relate to each other, you know, in such a unique way that
and we're probably more alike than we'd ever care to admit, you know. And I think that probably is a reason why we butt heads also, or why we have butted heads. But for me, it makes me really happy, like when I see, you know, the rare picture of him with his kids and stuff like that. I mean, he generally looks, you know, like he's a good dad, and for me, that's what it's about, you know, at this point in his career and life. And he's one of the baddest dudes I've ever had to race, and one of the baddest dudes ever to swing a leg over a bike. So proud and pumped that I got to, you know, kind of live and experience that. He motivated me day in and day out for over 10 years. So in a strange way, I feel lucky.
Like you owe him a lot in a way. Almost.
You know, although he calls me many sleepless nights. He also, you know, fueled and motivated the next day and the mornings and the days of putting plans together to how we're gonna beat this kid, you know. So it's been fun, and it's a shame to see him kind of just going MIA, you know, more than anything.
I had these conversations with him, and so he there was like this thing I did for DC when he signed with DC, and I'd just flown in from, like, I can't remember where I was. I was like going to London the next day, or like maybe I just got back from London. It was right before Christmas or whatever. Anyway, he rocks up to the track, and at this point, like we've been, like, you know, play golf together, all that kind of shit. Like I'd tell people he's a fucking super nice guy, blah, blah, blah. And then he comes to the track super late, and I was like tripping. I'm like, fuck, I want to get back to California. I've just been in London for 2 weeks. I got to go to California. That's a shit flight. Got all my camera gear. I just want to go. I want to get home. And then he gets the track late, and I was like, all right, dude, whatever. It's all good. I get it. And then comes there, does like 2 laps, and then he's like, the bike sounds weird. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Well, fucking let's get on another one. Like, let's make this shit happen. And he's like, nah, man. Like, I think we need to get it checked out. I'm going to send the motor back to California. And I'm like, dude, I'm fucking riding bikes my whole life. There's nothing wrong with that thing. Like, you're good. Let's just bust this shit out. And then, so then he's like, all right, I got to go. I got some shit to do, but I'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm like, my flight leaves tonight. And he's like, oh, dude, is there any chance you could... So I extended my flight like a fucking idiot. And then came back. He rode the next day, and it was all good. But that next day, he's like, oh, would you want to like make videos like throughout the year and like do some fun stuff? And I was like, James, you're so fucking good on a bike. You don't ever have to win a race again, bro. Like, this was when he was on Suzuki's, and it was kind of like tailing out. I'm like, I don't know that if you understand this whole like Instagram thing that's going around, but like, you don't have to do shit. All you have to do is throw retarded whips and like have fun. That's it. That's all you need to do from now. You can make money off that. You can engage with your fans off that. Like, you can let people into this whole world that you're going on your own terms. You don't have to go race. Like, you should do this. Like, could you imagine Bubba at Climbers?
Like, be fun.
Dude, it would be crazy. You know, and there was just this block, man. Like, he could have gone in this direction, and stayed in the sport. And like, look, like, dude, you're going to be able to show up at Aus X Open for the next 5-10 years. People are going to be pumped regardless, because you've earned that. Like, people are so invested in Chad Reed that you have earned that. You don't have to win. Like, people want to see you out there. I want to see you out there. I think the sport's a better place for you being out there. And dude, Hammer said this to me on the phone, and I was like, it just was like this light bulb thing. And I'm sure he said it to you. He said, it's so easier to keep Chad Reed in the sport than make a new one. Mm-hmm. And I just think that is like insanely true. And last year, especially last year, was frustrating because I know the KTM ride was between you and Tickle. And I love Tickle, and he's a very, very good dude. But KTM fucked up. Mm-hmm. Because to me, it's just like the industry's lost sight a little bit of like, what are we doing this for?
Well, I mean, originally it was always about selling motorcycles and
100%
and product. And, you know, on a global basis, I can confidently say that I do that better than anybody. At the very worst,
at least the top 5.
Equal or on the same page as Kenny.
Yeah.
I don't know where it all comes from, but, you know, there's some talk that Kenny does it on a global basis. I don't know, you know, like when you look at the big places selling, you know, Australia's one of the...
It's a big marketplace.
It's a big market, and I think I play a big role in that area. Yeah,
it was frustrating.
I think,
but I think the sport's lost sight of the fact of like, I think that the sport thinks that the rivalry between Eli Tomac and Marvin Musquin is somehow going to be as crazy as Chad Reed and James Stewart. I got fucking news for everybody. No one cares.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the truth for sure.
It is true, and it sucks. They're both amazing dirt bike riders, but like it's not about that. Like, even like, I'm a huge UFC fan. Win or lose, people want to see Conor McGregor fight, and it's like, because there's this transcendence that happens. There's this magic fucking special sauce that no one really knows the recipe to it. You had it, Ricky had it, James had it, Travis has it, K-Dub has it, McGrath had it, and it's like, if you look through history, and for mine, it's like you've got the Bradshaw era, then you got the Stanton, Jean-Michel Bale era, and then you've got like McGrath comes along, and then him and Emig, and then it's like Ricky comes along, and then you dethrone Ricky, and then James dethrones you, but then it stops. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know why, I don't know what happened. Maybe it got too clinical. And it got...
I think the changing of the guard was Ricky, you know?
It got too serious.
Ricky took it to a whole new level of being serious. And, you know, I think it was... There was such a part of the sport, like I don't ever believe, or I don't buy into that Jeremy didn't work hard, or, you know, the races were still 20 laps long back then. He was so unbelievably talented and so much better technically than everybody else. Maybe he didn't have to work as hard as Mike LaRocco or Jeff Emig or Larry Ward, but he was able to technically be so much better. And then Ricky came in, and I think lacked in the early days the technique, but then, you know, had to work harder and took the working hard to a whole nother level. And then I think as the years went on, the technique caught up, and he just kind of like went on a tear where technique, and, you know, although it wasn't always pretty, I always get a bit of a kick out of, and I think Ricky plays it up a little bit, and maybe it's something that he believes, but for me, I don't believe or buy into that Ricky wasn't ever as talented as Kevin Windham, because Kevin did things definitely nice and pretty and whatever, but like Ricky was ridiculously talented, you know, like, and I think that people always said it, and Ricky just kind of takes it, and I think it's his way of
his little brush off
and get a, you know, a bit of a dig and a jam it in people's faces that he wasn't that talented, but he worked hard.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've, you know, James included, I don't know that from motocross to supercross, from hard, slick, mud, ruts, I don't know that I've actually confidently, I know I haven't raced anybody more talented than Ricky Carmichael in that area, you know, those areas. I just think he had a work ethic and, you know, things that just made it work right for him. You know, like I think he was the first one to come in with the trainer, with the bus, you know, with a tight group of people.
Like more insulated.
Like he was the first one that really took the, you know, the training camp and the training facility to that next level. So I think when you're the first, you're always learning, and you've learned a lot of things that, you know, myself coming in, then James coming in, we were always doing things
based off him.
In a way, yes, based off of what you see, and you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, he's winning and he's doing this, this, and this. Okay, we need this and this, and it's like essentially you're 3-4 years behind.
Yeah,
you know. You know, maybe in reality it didn't really work out like that, but in a lot of ways,
yeah,
your learning process has got to go quicker, and because he's already been there and done that.
I can see that logic, you know what I mean? Making sense.
And I think that when you now look at our sport is literally based off of the greatest of all time, in the fact that you got to have Alden as a trainer, you got to be, you know, in a boot camp from November to January, you got to eat this, you know, from here to here, and, you know, you can only eat so many calories a day, and I don't believe that there's these guys generally love what they do. I don't believe that. I really don't. You know, like I think Ricky, James, myself, and prior to that, we truly loved it. And, you know, I think it was fun, and it was an experience, and now it's just, I don't know, it doesn't have that same feeling about it, you know, like where I don't see Eli or Marvin, Jason, like truly loving what they do.
Well, that's what's crazy. Like, did you see the little snippet where he said, like, it's pretty funny, I actually fucking can't believe he said it, but he goes like, oh yeah, I just had to tell Alden that I'm sick of him and I'm going to California. Nothing personal, but I just want to get away from you. Like, fucking, that's like gnarly. Like, that's the champ. And he's telling the greatest trainer ever, like, nah, man, I'm over it. And he won.
And maybe why he did win, you know?
For sure.
Maybe, well, like, maybe it's time, in my opinion, it's time for the Webbs and the Marvins and all these people, like, you got to take it all, and you got to take it in. And you know, in my opinion, I feel like some of the athletes that are there, their managers are more there and invested there than the athlete is. The athlete's mind is elsewhere, you know, so he's there, but he's not really there. He's just going through the motions.
But like, how much of that do you think is because these kids have like babied and they like haven't had to figure the shit out themselves? And like you look at a kid, or who would be like a good example of it? Maybe like Cooper. Like, Cooper's always had a ride. Like, dude, he was Red Bull Jam's kid at 12, and then he's always had a ride. Like, they got so farmed. Like, they didn't do the motorhome busting like you and Ellie did at 18 in a different country. And there's like some real life shit that went down in that kind of era that you grew up in. And I feel like nowadays you've got like the manager that comes along, and then the boots are done, the goggles. There's like there's a dude for the drink bottle, there's a dude for the Dunlop hat, there's a dude for the tool water can, there's a fucking guy for everything.
Yeah.
And it was honestly like one of the things that I used to see with James as well, and I'd be like you've just got a guy for everything. And then like, but what are you really handling? Like, the substance is like winning after you've had to like go through all this bullshit. And, you know, like for me, I spent all week trying to get ready for that live podcast this weekend. It was a fucking nightmare. Like, I didn't sleep. I didn't get to train. I didn't get to do anything. I was stressed out. I was fucking arguing with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then, but then when it was done, I was like pumped. and I felt a lot of accomplishment, and I felt great about what I'd done because I actually had to do some shit. And it's like, not to take away what they do on the bike, but it's just like this tiny little Groundhog Day that they exist in, because everything else is kind of taken care of these days. There's a guy for everything. And I think that it gets to be like a slippery slope when like you've got a guy that's acting on your best interest. So like with James, there'd be a guy that you'd have to call and you'd go, hey, we need to do this shoot with James for Bell. And Bell's asked us to do it and they want us to go through. And then you've got this guy that's like vetting his schedule and like, oh, I'm going to have to check with this and check with that. And man, he's kind of not feeling it at the moment. And it's like, I feel like that those dudes are like just justifying their job.
Totally.
And then they're going back to James and being like, oh man, you have no idea what I've had to deal with this week. I had like all these guys call me and these. So like, I am doing a lot of work. Like, let's keep this paycheck coming in, essentially.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, like, I'm at that point in my life where my timing and my image and my likeness is more important to me than ever. I recently, a year ago, just got rid of my long time agent and, just kind of wanted to do it alone, because it just feels like, once upon a time, these agencies brung
a lot to the table.
And not in a disrespectful way, but like when you look at action sports, when you look at motorsports in general on a global basis, sponsorship doesn't exist like it used to, So I think with respect to the agencies, that we're in a different time, Now it's all social media.
And if you got a tick, you can DM anyone.
Yeah, right.
Like, so like you go to like, oh, I want to go to Toyota or I want to get Ford. This is going to DM Ford. They're going to see that shit if you got a blue tick and 800,000 followers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a different era.
It's definitely different. And I think that, back in 04 or 05, like the $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 Slim Jim deals and, the Etnies contracts. I don't think anybody in moto has even a shoe deal these days, You're
getting a couple of pairs for free.
Like literally you're getting product only. It's just, It's such a different time and era and, though it's motorsport, but even look at NASCAR. It's like you look at, Jimmy Johnson's had for almost 20 years Lowe's. And it's like they just pulled out of the sport. And it's like a 7-time champion is struggling to find a sponsor, and it's like he's probably, with Junior out of it, he's the biggest name in the sport. And it's just tough. Like I look at my own team that I'm currently on with the Joe Gibbs Racing, and it's like, they're struggling to find sponsors,
And like, dude, and I don't want to like do money figures and stuff, but from what I've heard, like your old Etnies contract would probably get you through next year. Nowadays.
Oh, my shoe deal, my old Etnies shoe deal is
probably worth more than what you have to get.
Literally more than what I get paid from Fox these days, and it's like, and I think that sucks the fun out of a lot of it too, like when you feel like you're working your you're giving your everything, you're working your ass off and you're getting paid well, I think that people are genuinely happy to be pulled in 1,000 different directions. But when everybody's feeling the crunch and
nickel and
you're literally getting nickel and dimed on everything, I just think the fun factor, or this guy pulling you over here and this guy pulling you over here, and I can honestly say that you get pulled more now
than ever. When I was getting paid millions of dollars from people, I felt like those people were pulling me less than. It seems like the smallest deal you have, those people want to pull on you more. And I'm like, at what point do you say it's okay and that this makes sense? Because there's more headache involved than not. And for like
so I just think that generally it's not as enjoyable or as fun though I love it and I'm not wanting to go anywhere, but just openly speaking of how it was in the old days compared to now, and my own personal experience, I just think that, I don't think that fun factor is there. I mean, once upon a time, we used to do these sponsor obligations that would be, 2-3 days at a time, and you would just go and have a blast, like Parts Unlimited back in the old days in Thor. Jeff Fox would take us to Janesville and we'd hang out at the factory and we'd work our ass off. Like you'd, sign hours a day and, day and night. But it was when you clocked out, it was the feeling that you had from the bosses that they truly were happy and proud of your efforts, and that they gave you that feeling, like, that made you want to wake up at 6 a.m. the next morning and do more hours of signing and make the employees happy. Now it's just, I don't know, it's unauthentic. It's not that fun. Everything just seems vanilla. It seems predictable. Where in the old days it was more like you just got to do things that I think the athletes were in better moods, in better, you were in a better situation. Where now it's not quite the same.
Well, I think that the world's changed in terms of social media, right? And it's like we talk about like the Lowe's NASCAR thing. So it's like, it's the same with the whole podcast thing's the same. Like podcast is just fucking up the radio. Mm-hmm. Like, see your radio, like you're done. I haven't listened to the radio in years now.
Yeah. And I mean, because it's
convenient. I can do it when I want to do it. I can listen to what I want to do. And I think that what happened was, like, if you think about like the 50s and 60s, it's like, buy Coca-Cola. And it was like, that's the only ad you saw. And it was, you got like told what you had to like because it was popular culture. And that's where that name come from. And now that I think that fringe culture is culture. Oh, you like some soup, like jiu-jitsu is a perfect example, right? So that's like the fucking rabbit hole I'm living in at the moment. And it's like, there's these YouTube videos with like millions and millions of views, man. Like dudes that are superstars because they like share these instructionals on YouTube. Yeah. So it's like, people can decide what they want. So now, like, and me and Jason Haynes were talking about this the other night at Supercross. I said to him, because we're sponsored by Boost, and you're sponsored by Boost, and I just said, like, fuck, man, like the brand looks full now. Like, since they've taken over, it looks thick, it looks full, it looks like it used to look. And then I was like, it's crazy what you guys have done.
I think Boost has that OG action sports feel to it, like it seems like a company where they're thriving to do cool shit. And I think that generally, and not taking away from Jason and his team here, but sometimes that trickles down from the top.
100% it does.
And obviously Peter being more of an old school guy,
is a madman,
and is a madman, not afraid to do it differently. Yeah. And unfortunately, the way Boost is doing it is more normal to us, but it's now old school. It's a different way of doing it. And I think that's like, I generally look at and follow Boost for the obvious reasons of being an athlete. But, like when I see, what is he? He's got to be 12 years old. The one little skater they have.
Oh, that skate kid.
That little skate kid. Like, like I just think from, their involvement from, like I said, like you look on Instagram and I see this 12-year-old kid ripping around on a skateboard, and then in the next one it's either it's me or it's BMX or it's the V8 guys, and I just think that's cool. Like you're looking at, like, here I am 36. Yeah. Being with seen it all but then with a 12-year-old, and as a dad of 3, and my oldest is only 4 years short of 12-year-old, I just think it's cool that a brand is looking after their OG. You know, I mean, I've been around Boost.
You made Boost, really.
I've been around Boost since they launched. And then you see the corners from a 12-year-old coming into, X Games, and I think he had an injury, so he didn't get to do X Games, but, all that kind of stuff. And I just think that that's really cool, and I choose to be a part of something, that I feel like's going places and things like that. So, yeah, I wish more people did that. Like the way they activate, the way they do things, it has a core feel to it.
Well, even with them jumping on board this podcast, they had no idea what it was going to be. And I was just like, look, dude, it's going to be cool. Trust me. Just give us I just asked for basically no money at the start. And I was like, let's just do it. It's going to work. And they said yes. But what was interesting with what Jason said, and I think it speaks to this whole new sort of landscape, is I thought they got more money than the old, when it was under the old management here. So I was like, so what I thought was that Peter gave them way more money and then they just got to be everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. But what it was, I was talking to Hainsey and he said, dude, it's the same budget. And I was like, how did you do this for the same budget? I don't get how you can just be everywhere. And it is that thing of paying less, big ticket things and being everywhere, because it's we just don't have pop culture anymore. You've just got hundreds and hundreds of subcultures, and in each of these subcultures there's so much relevance and there's such a thriving population of people. And it's nowadays, unfortunately, if you want to be a company that's killing it, like Fox, they make mountain bike gear, they make chicks mountain bike gear, there's so much to compete with people's attention now that it's not good enough to just have the NASCAR bonnet and that's going to inspire millions of people to go. It's not about a logo anymore. Exactly. Sure. It's a good and a bad, because it's the money's not there in the way it was to go to the extreme the way that you guys got to go to. But then again, it's also just gets kind of trickled over everything. It's definitely a weird time. And that was one of the things I was interested to ask you about, is what it was like to know that you and Ricky and James is that's the top 3 highest paid dudes ever. You did the private jet thing. Mm-hmm. You did the bus thing. Your fucking motorhome's crazy. And it was but that's the pinnacle, and that's gone now. And you got to live through that, and you got to see the struggling not privateer, but the struggling European kind of adventure that you guys went on to then go to that extreme private jet life. And then, now to the Husky, 2018, essentially. You've been through all the phases of what this sport has to offer.
Yeah, and I guess the fact that I did get to ride that wave, obviously allows me to do it, because in a lot of ways, and I guess to touch on current, it doesn't make any sense to go racing from a straight up financial money point of view. It makes no sense to go racing.
That's kind of what I was getting with James,
because you don't get paid well at all. Everybody wants to cut you. Everybody wants to slice, dice. Everybody wants to still expect everything from you, and they're just reality is there's not a lot of money there anymore. I could retire and make more money. Yeah. 100%. Do the Australia, the New Zealand, do Paris Supercross, Genoa, make over $500,000 a year, doing 4 races a year. I struggled to make that doing
full time, having
20 races a year. So it's at what point does that make sense? And an agency or an agent telling you you're fucking crazy because you could do 5 races, 6 races a year, a couple of events, and make close to $1 million.
And have way more fun.
Or go and race 20 races a year and feel like you're getting absolutely screwed in every way possible. But for me...
the risk you're exposing yourself to is insane.
But for me, I have rode the good days, so because shit. Realistically, there was once upon a time that I wouldn't even consider swinging a leg over a bike for less than $5 million. That's reality. That's me, Ricky, and James only. There ain't no one currently making half that. So I think that we were lucky, you know, and that's all prior to swinging a leg over a bike. That's not bonuses, championships,
Etnies
deals, all those kinds of things.
Slim Jim
so
cash.
I think that, you know, I feel really fortunate that I got to live that era, because it really did. It went from my stepping into the US, you know, it was already going like that, you know, motorcycle sales and clothing and everything. The sport in general was just on fire until,
and it was like in tandem with
recession.
the whole. It was in tandem with like the freestyle thing too.
Yeah, I mean, it was all of us.
You know,
like it was,
like
it was
Kerry
obviously,
and
you know, Kerry and
Deegan.
Deegan and all those guys. Everything, like I would package action sports.
Yeah, it just went
because, you know, I mean, shit, we were all, you know, the Dave Mears of the sport, Kerry Hartz, you know, Ryan Nyquist, you know, Ryan Scheckler. You know, it's funny that he's 30 or 31 years old now.
Crazy.
He used to be, you know, just a baby, it seemed like. And yeah, I mean, it's insane to think of like what we all were. And then we all kind of went hand in hand, you know, like it was, I remember going to the SB Awards with those guys and, you know, being grouped in. We used to have a Supercross at X Games. There was Supermoto at X Games. And now it's
like deflated. It's
it
like
really
it was
is.
a bubble.
Like, I mean, even X Games, like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but like I look at X Games and it's not the same.
No.
Like I remember that I would turn the TV on and not miss an event.
Yeah, dude.
Whether
for
it was
sure.
skating, vert, BMX, dirt, VMX,
But
park.
that's what I'm saying about the personalities. There is no Chad Reed now, and it's like Kenny's maybe the closest thing. Dino's cool as fuck. Ando's super cool, but it's not the same. Like these guys are crazy cool, but like, dude, I looked at you as like this fucking fake not fake, like this superhero. Like you weren't real. Like it was so unattainable to be Chad Reed. But to me, like that's lost now. Like I just don't know that kids have that same thing for like Dean or Kenny. And it was like, yeah, it was like this concoction of everything that led to that. It wasn't just your riding. It wasn't just Ricky's riding. It was this whole thing that happened that we've kind of lost now.
And I think that you currently get probably a better look into people's lives than ever. You get to see the day-to-day.
Shout out to Earl.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know that like we, you know, like if we go back to the beginning of, you know, me and keeping people at an arm's length, like there's certain things that I don't let people in on. You'll never see me in the gym, people in my house doing film, you know, like filming other than MTV Cribs. No one comes and has access to my house of like seeing me train. Not because I'm doing anything that no one else is doing, but for me, that's not cool.
Yeah.
I don't find it that cool because I see it already a million times across social media. So why show somebody something that's already been getting showed a million times over? So I always am the kind of like everyone's like, hey, we like that's like I feel like our sport in general, you know, like when Feld comes to us, it's so predictable what they want from you.
Oh, dude, tell me about it.
Like
I've shot the same thing a million times.
Like literally,
I don't know.
Word
I get to a point
word,
where I don't know how to do this any cooler. Like I think it's done.
And so think about
for you,
from me that's been there since 2002, and literally word for word, script for script on, hey, we want this, this, and this. I'm like, fuck, let's change it up. Let's do something. And I've pushed. I don't know if I should say I've pushed, but I've authentically utilized my kids and my family life.
Yeah, you could see like a point.
And I'm like, that's me pushing against the grain of like, hey, we want to come to your gym and shoot your opening ceremonies. Oh my gosh, shoot me in the head now.
Dude, I remember.
Like, have we not seen that on everybody else? You know, like, so for me, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. You're not coming to my house, for one. You're not coming into my gym, 2. And I don't want to do that, 3. So that's not happening. So let's figure out, okay, I want my kids. And I always have, you know, like the last 2 or 3 years, I've had my kids in my opening ceremonies.
Dude, I remember being at A1 when the first time that shit come on. And was it 2-2 was the first time you did that?
Yeah.
With the kids it was like you and Tate riding and shit.
It was me and Tate riding.
And then he come out at the opening ceremony.
Totally.
The crowd fucking
nuts.
lit up, dude. Yeah. Lit up. And I remember it sitting there.
And you can't predict that. You don't know if that's going to be a fail
hit or not.
Because, I mean, you're working at that point. He's 4 or 5 years old. You know, kids are not robots. They only do what they want to do. Yeah. So you're always, you're at the mercy of whether they're having a good moment or not, whether they want to participate.
Bring in the stunt kid. Bring in the stunt kid.
But
where's Macaulay?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that when we talk more negative, it all trickles from the top.
Yeah.
You know? And I just think that we need to, I don't know, like, you need to be able to embrace the athletes more, you know? Like, we always hear about it. Like, probably the last 10 years, I've constantly heard about the push for, all the certain things. But generally, it hasn't changed. You know, like, when I watch a TV show for Supercross, it's so predictable.
Yeah.
You know, like, they cover the same shit. You know, the whole mechanic side of it is so lame.
Let's put a mic on the mechanic.
You know, like, I just think that there's, I don't know, somebody isn't doing their job correctly to go and get real personality.
Well, like, dude, you think about, like, Verb. That was the coolest fucking shit in motocross.
And where is it?
Well, people wouldn't support it. It's great, but it's like that was the dopest shit.
And I think that is ideally the number one reason why our sport is hurting, because, like you said, they're doing rad dope stuff. What does it take to do rad dope stuff?
Money,
and time
and support as well. Yeah,
and time, like, or participation from athletes.
Yeah.
So when you've got said athlete, I'm not the good example because I don't have a trainer or somebody telling me what to do. But when you've got the top guy, and in Verb's time, RV, Dunge, those guys, they're so regimented. They're so controlled by trainer, manager, backup manager, manager's friend,
helmet guy,
hat guy, gear guy, goggle guy, that there's no access to them. So how can you create cool shit from a turd, in my opinion?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's just how it is, I think.
And now, like, so like Dean and Adam, perfect example. They've both just started YouTube channels. And it's like, hallelujah. Like, thank you. And nowadays too, like, technology's got, well, I think there's a thing too that happened to where, and I think, like, Wes is a little bit a victim of his own success in a way where the production level, like, the shit we used to shoot was so fucking good that it got out of control.
It was out of control for sure. Because then it always required, I mean, obviously.
And you shot with Wes recently and Will, right? And they
like
had like they had the fucking
the drone and
the,
like,
what was the big ATV deal that they had?
Yeah, the ATV, and then they had like the like the cables above my Supercross track, and so you have to have an athlete willing to participate in a multi-day thing,
and it's a lot of work,
and it sucks because, as a 36-year-old that probably looks at things very differently than a 26 that I was at 26, you don't see the big picture at that age. You're just head down, ass up, doing your thing, and really, you're only as good as the data you're taking from man friend, hat holder, gear guy, trainer guy, manager guy,
and you trust those dudes,
and
because they're the guys that
you kind of put your faith in, and you do your thing and what you think's gonna make you go from A to B and be the best that you can be. And yeah, like those guys don't, you know, because as long as they're doing or essentially looking like they're doing their job and you're paying them, they're not going to mess with, you know, the athlete.
They're not going to rock the boat.
And not going to rock the boat at all. So I just think it's this slippery slide of what it's becoming. And I think what concerns me personally about Dino and Adam, I also think it's rad. And I think that Earl probably has a, you know, and I don't want to say this wrong because Dino's one of my closest friends, but I think seeing where Dino's at, and I really hope that he gets back on a factory team and you know, gets that success that he deserves. If that doesn't happen, I really believe Dino has a higher success rate of embracing his actual real personality. Yeah. What's authentic, you know, authentic to him and fun for him, enjoyable for him. But I do know that obviously the racing desire burns deep, deep inside him. So he's trying to do that.
Trying to balance it.
But I think if Dino and Adam are not successful from a racing standpoint, that whole YouTube thing,
people don't care.
Like, there's certain people that don't care, and those people are Mitch, and race teams and factories and those kinds of people. Because now that would, you know, like it's so easily viewed as like, oh, it's like they care more about this, their head's over here.
But like all you have to do, and I mean you're like bang on. But to that, like I'd say to the Mitches and the whoever's is like, look at every other industry, every other action sport. You got free surfers, free riders, skaters that just make video parts. Like that shit still exists. Mm-hmm. There's dudes that like the best surfers in the world aren't on tour. So it's like every other sport has that. And it's like motocross is so stubborn and clinging to this race win thing. And it's like, dude, I'd never bought a bike in my life off a race win. For real.
No, I agree.
I had Hondas my whole life because my dad loves fucking Hondas. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the long and the short of it. But gear, I bought on personality. Dude, my brother had every Thor set of gear that you ever wore from fucking 04 to 08.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff people buy off personality. Mm-hmm. But I think that the bike ties, I just don't think, at least from a personal level, and I don't know that many people that are influenced on a bike sales thing. I feel like that changed with KTM and Dungey though. Like I think that was a point where it really was like, okay, they're selling some motorcycles now off winning. And maybe Kenny did it a bit when he lit everyone up in those first 3 rounds when that new Honda came out. But like, honestly, man, like I don't know that people buy bikes based off the race win stuff. I think that it's more that personality, who's your favorite guy, and it's not always the guy that wins.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
There's like I think that there's both sides to it.
There's definitely ways that people can be persuaded that one bike's better than the other.
Perfect example. Sorry, I cut you off. How many Kawasaki's did you see in the 450 main event on the weekend?
Yeah, only with the one that's supported by the Australian Kawasaki guys.
How many? Who won the most main events in Supercross 2018? What brand?
In the US,
Kawasaki.
Just Kawasaki for sure.
You know, and I mean that's a super isolated example, but what I'm getting at is it just doesn't directly translate.
No, I would agree with that, and I think that in that respect, Kawasaki has also made a huge. They took a gamble. But I think it's a gamble that's going to pay off because they're the first Japanese bike to really jump into putting hydraulic clutch on the bike. You know, they're not the first to put electric start, but now they have electric start.
Yeah, that new thing does look
so
good.
I do think that the new Kawasaki is looked at differently. It's the first bike. It's the first Japanese brand to essentially go up against the Austrian bikes,
the KTM model, yeah.
And I think that people respect that part of it because though I'm fortunate to know the ins and outs of why these companies, the Hondas, the Suzukis, the Yamahas, don't essentially just throw all this stuff on their production bikes, you got to applaud, I think, a company that wants to go out and build a badass bike, you know, because at the end of the day, you're a racer and I'm not average Joe going and riding, you know, the local trails, you know, like you want a motorcycle that's rad, you know. So I think that formula is cool, and I hope that is something that we all follow suit, you know. So I have obviously, you know, with being back with working with the Japanese with Suzuki, I know that a lot of the conversations and a lot of the questions that we have are electric start, hydraulic clutch, you know, all these essential things that are foreign to Japanese brands currently.
It's crazy how stubborn they are, man, the Japanese.
I don't know that I would I guess.
Is it stubborn?
No, once upon a time I would say stubborn, but as I've become older and I probably care or I've maybe actually post running my own race team.
Yeah, okay.
And understanding budgeting and how much money you spend to make a motorcycle a half-pound lighter, or, you know, all these essential things, it doesn't really matter, you know? Like when you look at, you know, like the Japanese bikes right now, you know, and I hate saying it when you're a Japanese bike guy, but they're so heavy compared to to a KTM and a Husky. Like I'm talking 15, 20 pounds heavier.
That's insanity.
You know what I mean? And
I can't even bicep curl that.
Right? And it's like, when you think about it, you're that much lighter. You have electric start. You have a battery. All the, like, you know...
all the shit that goes with that.
All the wiring and crap that goes with it. A hydraulic clutch. Essentially, you got all these cool things, and your bike is still lighter. And I just think that there's a general consensus of people embracing that evolution, I think, you know, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Japanese they're not buying into that straight racing aspect of it, you know, like they're still aiming at the core people buying the motorcycle that isn't me, you know, like, because I'm not the perfect example of somebody going and buying a bike, you know, like it's average Joe, you know, weekend warrior guy that's super pumped on his bike, you know, because he's a Suzuki guy through and through kind of thing. So yeah, you definitely see it differently when you have been exposed to it more, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But the racer in me definitely wants to
gets frustrated.
Yeah, like you want everybody to push the envelope, you know. Like some of the stuff that I try and I get to race with, you know, the general public would be pumped on that, and that would make a difference, and they would like that, you know. But
the cost to put that into production is outrageous.
Obviously the cost to put that into production is far outweighs the, you know, the ups than their losses, you know.
How long ago does Europe feel to when you're doing, like, is that still like a super fond memory? Because like I don't remember really like reading a lot of you talking about Europe.
Everything's happened so fast. Like I wouldn't say that Europe feels long ago at all, you know, like everything's happened so damn fast. Europe was the most fun.
Yeah, I get that from like a lot of people that I know that have been there.
Yeah, like I would say that Europe was the funnest that Ellie and I had.
Because Euros are just fucking freaky, bro.
And when I say that, it's not that we generally had more fun. It was more the environment and how just straight off the boat you were, you know, like you were so fresh, you were young and dumb, and it was the experience of the unknown, you know, like sitting in your driveway, going to the first GP and literally looking at a map, and you're in Belgium and you need to go to Spain and you don't know which way to go out of your driveway. You know, like there was no iPhones, there was no navigation. You know, I recently spent 20 days in Europe with the family, and God, it's so easy now with an iPhone. You literally, in English, you know, put in the address that you want, press go and it tells you in English where to go, you know? Back in those days, it was following a map down to a certain point, and then it tells you, okay, you got to go to M16, and then you got to, you know, go through the pages, M16, and then you follow it all again, you know? So I think that at 18 years old, Ellie, literally fresh out of graduation of high school.
That is insane.
Right?
Can you imagine Tate doing that shit? Being like, hey man, me and my girlfriend, the day she graduates, we're going to fly to Europe.
And that's funny, you know, like when you put it into that context of you know, your own child and things like that. Obviously my own experience, you have to embrace it, because, you know, like I'd be a hypocrite for not. So yeah, it's different. But it's like, what's funny for me is when I look back at it all, I had nothing. I didn't have money to my name. I mean, yeah, I was successful and, you know, won 2 championships here and things like that. But shit, my salary was $25,000 a year back then, you know. Balling, you know, like I think I had a highest van to my name. Other than that, 2 kids, you know, like for me, I'd been pro 2 years. Ellie graduated in 2000. So at the end of 2000, like right after graduation, so she was accepted into college, and she, I don't know if that's generally how it works all over the world, but in Australia you can defer for a year.
Do the gap year or whatever.
Yeah. So she deferred a year, and we both essentially went into it.
What was she going to do?
She wanted to do childhood, like teaching, you know, like like kindergarten through, you know, 1st, 2nd grade, which is what her mom does. So she loves, you know, from the moment I met her, she's always been, you know,
very motherly
and looking after children. And, you know, her sister's 10 years younger than her, and so she, you know, pretty much babied her her whole life. So so here we are, 2 18-year-old kids, kind of just openly, willingly embracing,
just winging it,
whatever's gonna come at us, you know. My mom and dad were super against it. My decision was all about, okay, so I really thought about it. Like, when I think now at 36, my thought process, like, it makes me proud, because you're old enough to probably know, but like, remember Johnny DeStefano? So, you know, Johnny was racing at the time and was kind of like
Kembla warrior. Yeah.
So Johnny was, you know, kind of at that point where he was getting hurt a lot, and, you know, he was a guy that like had a work ethic, you know, crazy, like loved working out, training, all those kinds of things. But unfortunately he was on the smaller side. So, you know, transitioning from 125 to 250 didn't necessarily go well. Anyway, long story short, I was considering asking Johnny to go with me. And he would be able to help me training and, you know, basically do all the things that I couldn't do, or at least I didn't know all the things about. I had a high school friend, high school dropout, you know, he was good at football. One of my closest friends. I considered taking him, and I was just like, dude, like, here I am, I'm going to be on the other side of the world. I'm 18 years old. I'm going to be homesick as shit. Do I want to be hanging out with dudes? You know, and I'm 18 years old.
With that comes partying and...
The partying, which I never was into.
Getting bitches.
Going and getting chicks, you know, all those things. And I, like, when I think about it, like, I made a very grown-up, advanced, beyond my 18 years on life. And I just said, I really think that the big picture, I want to take Ellie. You know, like, at that point, we spent a lot of time together. We didn't live together. I lived at home. She lived at home. She'd be either staying over my place, or I'd stay over there. And then I kind of was just like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to take Ellie. So yeah, I told mom and dad, and that didn't go well.
When you were in Europe, were you and Sharky in Europe at the same time?
Yeah. So me and Sharky both, Sharky and Berner.
Okay.
All left Australia at the same time.
Fuck, that would have been fun.
So obviously Berner went to the US, and did the Amic, what was that? The Edge, I think the team was called, or something like that. And then it's kind of a funny story. So obviously, what was it? The MXGP in Broadford in 2000. Burner and Andrew, should I say Andrew and Burner were the big performers.
Yeah.
I think they went 3 and 4th or something like that. Maybe Andrew got 3rd overall at the 500 race.
I forgot about that race, dude.
I don't remember what I got. Maybe I got like an 8th or a 9th, and then like a 15th or something like that.
Did you race a 500 as well?
I raced a 426.
Really?
Yeah. So
No
I was on Yamaha, so we raced
that
a 426.
thing would have handled sick.
And back then you had to be 18 to race it, and I think I just made the cutoff. Maybe my birthday was like a week or 2 before the GP. So I only was just old enough to actually race it. So anyway, I didn't perform, nearly as good as what they did. Those guys ripped starts and crushed it. And so Kawasaki, obviously, and Andrew was on Kawasaki and Aus. So Andrew, naturally was getting offered the Yanda
good rides and stuff. Yeah,
like the Kawasaki ride. And then he didn't take it. He took the Yamaha ride to stay in 500. And then I believe Burner also turned down the Kawasaki ride, went to the US. So then Yanda Groot called me as pretty much like the last hope of like...
You're like the 3rd string quarterback. You're like Jimmy Gruffalo, bro.
I'm like the 3rd string quarterback, and they're like,
shit.
Okay, here's your ride. I don't even remember how he reached out to me, whether it was by phone.
It wasn't a DM,
or it was no DM. It was back when, like, I had no email, no, smartphone or anything like that. So it was all about a fax. So everything was done over fax.
Really?
So, basically, I believe that there was a phone call and, hey, I'm Jan de Groot. I run Factory Kawasaki.
Hello, Chad, is this you?
And at that point, I hear Factory Kawasaki. I have no fucking clue who Jan de Groot is. I have no clue about Europe in general because I was so America.
Curry.
America. But I was Curry, but I was Jeremy McGrath.
Yeah.
American Supercross. So I knew Stefan Everts, Monique Bavorts, and Ronaldo Yamaha, but I didn't follow it close enough to know Jan de Groot ran, and was essentially a key component to Sebastian Dortelli's career, to Stefan Everts' career, to, all these other people. And so all I heard was Factory Kawasaki contract, and I'm like, yep, perfect, let's do it.
And I'm out. And
he faxes through a contract, and from, top to bottom, I think it was a 2-pager at that point. Now they're 22 pages long.
I was going to say, shit, that's barely a waiver to drive a go-kart.
Yeah,
now.
so literally it's basically what is currently a waiver, and it was XYZ. All I read was it was an 80,000 US sign-on, which I was like, fuck yeah, sign me up. And it was 20,000 Dutch, whatever it used to be.
Francs or something.
Dutch francs or something like that, for food money. I'm like, bro, I'm getting food money, sign me up. And it was a vehicle too. They would give me a motorhome and a van. So I'm like, perfect. All I got to do is pay for, rent, I got food money, and I'm literally thinking that an $80,000 contract at that point is $1 million. What felt like $1 million to me, because you go from a $25,000 a year to 80 US, which is what 120 or something like that at the point back in those days. So yeah, it was never about the money. It was really just all I heard was Factory Kawasaki.
Well, you probably couldn't have even speaking of the money, you couldn't have even really known what $80,000 was capable of doing.
I didn't. I didn't. At
you
that point,
not even known how to spend $80,000 or how far $80,000 would even go.
You didn't know at that point. It just seemed so surreal. It really did. At that point, you felt like how can you fuck up life when you got $80,000? Literally, it's so funny that I think about it, and it's just. yeah, it's amazing. Like it wouldn't even be a down payment for a house. But
Dude, do you remember at your peak money, and you don't have to say numbers, but like, was there ever a moment where you were just like, what the fuck?
No, because...
Or is it because it's a slow build to get there?
I would say in a sad way, you're so caught up in that moment, and you're so influenced from people around you, no matter what the number was, whether somebody offered you 3 million, or 4 million, you still wanted 5 or you wanted 6, or you heard that James got this or Ricky got that. So you just kind of were like, like for me, it wasn't ever like, I never, and in a sad, good way maybe, but I never cared about money. Like it wasn't like I cared. It was more getting what you're worth and being okay with that. But as far as like the actual number, that number never meant anything to me. Like it wasn't like I was like, I never, and I think about it now and it's like maybe it would have been nice to embrace and go, wow, like I'm really thankful for this. But I didn't. You never stopped to think about being thankful because you expected it. It was what the other two were getting. So it was like, sweet, all right, good. I was appreciative, massively appreciative, but like just, I never took that moment of, wow, that's really cool. Like who thought, from a kid that grew up in Kurri would be signing, a deal like this. That never happened because that wasn't real to me, because all I had in mind was win, 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 win. And it was either win, and literally it's that you're either first or last feeling. And that was, I think, the shitty part of Ricky, James, myself era, is that we were so just cutthroat, win or lose. That was it. There was nothing in between.
I actually remember being a kid and seeing like photos of you in second and looking like you wanted to fucking kill somebody.
and that was real.
Yeah, and in my head, I was like, damn, I would love to get second just like one time. Just give me 1 second like at a club day. You know what I mean? And like, I never, ever, ever understood until like nowadays. And because it's not just you, like it's this machine that you're caught in, and it's all these people that you're around, and it's like, the momentum from one weekend to a next, and then the championship. It's like, it's so much more than just like that 20 laps. Okay, I got second. Bummer. It's like, it's everything, eh? Like it consumes you. And I remember when Mossy got the podium for JDR. Bro, me and Jay, we fucking sprinted. We sprinted from our seats down, and my heart was racing 1,000,000 fucking miles an hour, man. I was shaking. I was so happy. And I was happy for him. I was happy for Jay. I was happy for myself. I was happy for Nate Dogg. I was happy for every fucking mechanic. I was so happy for all of these people. And I think maybe that was one of the first moments where I really got like some legitimate insight into what it must have been like for guys like you to have everything riding on it.
And what's so awesome about like that experience is that's a team of people that have all essentially worked hard, built a team, and gotten maybe not the ultimate prize, but a massive prize.
In the context of it,
and you genuinely are happy for achieving that. And I was also happy with achieving those first wins and podiums and whatnot, or fourths in the 250 class in my 125, the first year. But it quickly just changes. It quickly overcomes you, and you just become so competitive that, and I guess that was probably the downside to racing Ricky, is that's how Ricky was. Like think about, Ricky probably put on in the early days, not so much, but when you see Ricky lose in the early days, he learned to be politically correct in losing, but in the early days, he generally fucking hated it, and hated it every time after that. But
he learned to put a poker face on.
But he definitely learned to put on a poker face, and I could pretty much word for word tell you what he would say if he lost, because that was his go-to words to cover it up, And I applaud him for learning that earlier than I was able to. But it just, you just worked your ass off, and everybody around you, and it was like there was first to last. That was the feeling, and it was so gnarly but so awesome all at the same time. Like, there's parts of me that it makes me sad that you never embraced it, but I think that that's who you truly were, and probably why I still am here today is because I generally loved working hard, trying to win, the winning feel, and though I haven't had the winning feel in a while, it still runs super, super deep within myself, and you want to put that puzzle back together, and each performance at that podium level from here on out would, I feel like, be embraced more,
Yeah, you could see that with 2-2, I reckon. Like, it was like a win, but it was like a different win. It seemed like the emotion was different. It was more, it seemed like more gratitude, less expected. You know what I mean? Like, because I feel like there's a point where, like, let's say Yamaha, 04 Yamaha, you get that win. You just straight expect that win.
Yeah, 100%. All the way through, even 2 days.
It just seemed like it had a different vibe.
I feel like that's more becoming of age. Like, that's more 30 plus, couple of kids, and evolving quickly as a father, as somebody who is taking on life differently. Because my go-to is still there. Very, like this weekend, I don't come to Australia and expect to lose or expect to have the performance that I had. I really struggled this past weekend with the track and being able to get the most out of myself. When I had the starter, I was leading. It was a track that allowed me to, control the race and ride well. But when I was behind, it was such a gnarly, difficult situation that you really couldn't do anything. The track didn't allow separation, or that 1, 2, 5%, whatever that number is, that you tried to push to catch somebody. It wasn't like normal.
Where it seemed like if you pushed to go forward, you'd actually go backwards.
Correct. And so I struggled all weekend, trying to find how do you get the most out of the bike and the track and the tires, and just because it was so difficult. So I was disappointed, and I think that when I come here, I have a lot of pressure on myself to put on a good show, make fans happy. And so when you come, and probably for the first time in a long time, or even possibly ever, I fell massively short of what I was normally able to do. So it felt like a failure. You massively failed this weekend, But, you have to quickly realize that the conditions, for one, and the fact that at 36 years old, you're not necessarily should be expected to win. Although I still do. And that's probably why I'm here too, But yeah, I think that you quickly have to realize, and then instead of it being a week of being pissed off until you get to go racing on the next weekend, it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes or, depending on it. Like, I already, from taking my helmet and goggles off to getting out of my gear and doing interviews with the media, I'd already come out of it and realized, it's okay.
It's all good. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Because that's what I was going to say, man. Like,
Yeah.
like we were there, me and my girlfriend watching in the stands, and like, I was pumped. I was fucking stoked I got to see you ride. You look good. Like, and it's like, I don't want to say people don't care, but people don't care that you lost.
Mm-hmm.
People care that you came.
Yeah.
And you showed up and you did the fan thing, and you were like, Chad Reed was still here. And like, and even, you know, if this JGR thing doesn't work out and you're not racing next year, like, I got to see Chad Reed do his last race in Sydney, which I'm sure you'll be back next year.
I'm sure I'll be back.
You'll be back, but you know what I'm saying.
We'll figure it out. But there is that sense of feeling that could be the last one.
Is that why you took the Joker lane in the last race?
I wish it was. Unfortunately,
what did you do, man?
I
just spaced out.
Nah, truthfully, and I take full responsibility. I never went to a riders meeting. They had me working.
So you thought you could do it every race?
I never knew that you couldn't do it every race.
Makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, for good or bad, I didn't know any different. All I knew is I'm not a fan of the Triple Crown thing anyway, or whatever we call it, triple moto format. I hate it. I'd rather go 20 laps and grind it out and have to let the best man win kind of thing. But, you know, like the world we live in, everyone's trying to create a show.
Attention spans.
Yeah, exactly. So I get that. So I just thought we were adopting Monster Cup way of doing it. I mean, that's true.
You just didn't show up.
I didn't.
That's so good.
And
that's actually better. That's like the best case fucking thing that you could have said.
I think it's you know, like I'm disappointed that I assumed and I didn't even ask. But then it's like, I also, dude, I worked my damn ass off and I did my job on signing ridiculous amount of autographs and meeting with the media and doing all these things, and for whatever reason I never made it to the writers meeting. And I know that those things, I don't know if they are here, but generally you only have one of those, you know, and it's kind of close. Like basically you do that in the US and then you go get ready and ride. Where here it was hours away from riding. Yeah. So yeah, like my schedule and where they had me and what I had me doing didn't allow me to just be there, I guess. Yeah,
because even we did like the live podcast with like everybody, and I was texting the boys and I was like, is Chad going to come on? And they're like, nah. Like it's too it's too busy, you know, like because you just had so much stuff going on. And like, and I get it. I mean, I'm being the guy that pulls people away, and like it's a lot harder than people do think. So I mean, I can definitely see how you just didn't go.
So that was it. That was truthfully
that's fucking epic. I actually like that more than any other.
And so everyone kind of talks about it, and I think it's funny, and I would love to see video, because I don't believe that I passed anyone or did anything good when I did it in the second one.
No, you come right out next to Jason, didn't you?
No, that was the last one.
Was that the one before?
No, like, so the last one when I passed Jason, I had already taken it in the second one. So the first one I crashed, and there was like, you know,
where did you crash? I don't even remember that.
I crashed coming out of the last turn before the finish. I was in third in the first one.
Oh yeah, you slid.
I lost it.
Yeah.
So let me back up. So in America, you're so wired. I mean, you know, so Dungey and RV have both missed
the Joker
lane, and
you just get in the zone.
Essentially lost an opportunity to win
$1 million,
the $1 million, or even the $100,000. So with that said, in America it's longer. So you have to take it, because if you don't take it, you're essentially cutting the course.
Yeah.
Or you're whatever. So here it's actually a shortcut. So not taking it is you're penalizing yourself.
Yeah.
So here it's not a big stress of like, gotta take it. But you still have that thought process from only 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago of racing Monster Cup.
Yeah.
And so the second one, I would really love to know whether I actually passed somebody, or if I just took it because I thought, no, I don't want to do the whoops this lap, and I'll just take the Joker lane. which I think is more the case.
The Shannon shortcut.
Shannon's, yeah, right? The Shannon shortcut.
Give him a shout out.
Get him a shout out. There you go, people, for sure. So then anyway, I didn't think much of it. And then, you know, like I was trying to itch up on Dino and kind of got close to Dino to a point where I thought I can make a pass on both of these guys. Went for it. And then, and it's funny because, like, you know, Jason's thought process and my thought process is so different in the fact that I'm thinking the whole time, damn it, Jason's sitting right on me. He's just waiting to the last lap, and he's just gonna take the Shannon shortcut, and you know I'm not gonna be able to, like, when he's right behind me, he's gonna pass me easy.
Yeah.
And then, so my concern was solely on, okay, keep nailing lap after lap after lap. Try to put enough time between me and Dino. And when Dino takes it on the last lap,
it won't be enough.
It won't be enough, and I'll still finish second. And then I come around, and you know, you come quickly out of the tunnel, and I seen Kevin with a sign that I've seen before, but I couldn't read it because you're looking through him and going through the whoops, which are sketchy as hell.
Yeah,
so
that was gnarly.
You're kind of like, you know, you're looking away from him. Anyway, I actually generally thought that Jason must have jumped, or Dino must have jumped on a yellow flag, because we had a situation. I think Clout was down.
Oh, he's that dude.
Yeah.
Did you hear what happened to that guy?
No, I don't.
Man, I actually want to know. He looked bad.
Oof.
Yeah, he smoked him.
Anyway, I just thought, okay, you know, those guys must have done something wrong. It was like, and it was me that I took the Joker lane, obviously once too many times, and I just was completely blindsided by it, to be honest. But it is what it is. I mean,
yeah, I mean, fuck.
Like, what do you do? You know, like, the big picture is you
lit the candles, bro.
You lit the candles. I you know, like, helmet off, I felt like I worked my ass off, and I got to meet a lot of amazing people and put smiles on, you know, kids and adults' faces. And I can honestly say that this year my line was different. Like, I've always had a big line. Yeah. You know, wherever I go. But here there was a different feeling, and I probably took that on a little bit too much, and it was that feeling like
too much. You probably had a bit too much, like, nostalgic kind of feeling. I'm always motivated, and I love the pressure, but the pressure to perform and win in a situation where there wasn't a separation like normal, I couldn't rise to, you know, a level that was better than everybody on that particular racetrack. We were all just, whoever got the start was going to win, basically. And that was frustrating, and it was, you know, like, because you'd always been able to, like, sometimes you're just in that mood and you're just like, you know, and I felt like I was inches off of hole shots, and just, you know, like the last one, I was like, I pretty much had it, and next minute, was that when you went really tight? And
Reardon got just in the inside of me and controlled me on the inside, and it was just like, you know, like, you're so mad. But my starts, I felt, were really good, but I think that essentially when you qualify fourth, I had, you know, I was on the outside of Brayton, and I just didn't have ideal gate position, so it is what it is. But yeah, I think that my line, it never moved. Like, it was insane, you know. Like my 3 autograph, I had 3 1-hour sessions, and then I had other, like, meet and greets and stuff, but, like, I had 3 full 1-hour signings at the Boost Mobile
yeah, they had, like, that booth. 6 setup going,
yeah, and it was like,
you try to
take it on, and you try to embrace it, and it's like, you kind of, like, you try not to just be, you know, here, you try to be more out and just be thankful kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm watching the line, and, like, it generally doesn't feel like it's moving, and I'm just like, wow. It's like it was wrapped around the whole pit area, and it was just like, you maybe, like, I don't know, I was more aware of it than normal.
Yeah.
And so I felt you wanted to make them people happy, you know, like, you wanted to sign their thing, you wanted to high five their kids, and it was tough. It was tough not to, you can't sign everybody, you can't meet everybody, unfortunately, but you generally want to put on a good show. And I felt that I did a good show, but just not the ultimate end result that I was looking for.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, I left there as a Chad Reed fan going like, fuck, it was rad. I got to see him, and, I'll be in New Zealand, so I get to sort of watch again. But, like, the general consensus, I think, is that, like, it's just this appreciation of people being there. And it's like, I don't know, it is all about winning, and maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's a loser's attitude to be like, it's all about winning, but it's like, the kid's not going to remember you winning. The kid is going to remember the high five, and the kid's going to remember the hey buddy, what's your favorite bike, and what bike you got, and then they're going to put the poster on the wall. It's like, that's the shit that lives on in these kids' minds, and it's not necessarily a race win, but it's hard to balance that with like the reason that you got to the level that there's a kid that wants your autograph is because you were so damn competitive.
And it's as the years go on, you just notice it, you embrace it, you appreciate it, and it's just different. And I think that I think that you have to kind of see what you do good and what you don't do good, and I think from experiences you have to learn from that. And probably out of the whole weekend, my wife was so pissed off at me, and I'll touch on it just because it took me, and it kind of like put me in a situation where I was like, I get it, but I came into the weekend and I was fired up still from not being on the donations team.
I wanted to talk about that. I'm glad you reminded me. And
I felt like Kid Chad, and I wanted to come and prove, and I wanted to win, and I wanted to crush it, and I'm not that person anymore, like I don't, like it's not about being bitter or anything like that, and I felt like there was a part of me that was bitter, and I wanted to do the Aussie.
That old thing.
I wanted to get a jab.
Do you want to know my take on it? Or do you finish that?
So when we won the Australia versus USA thing, which let's admit that in general was supposed to be a fun race. And it quickly turned to a very serious race when, it was supposed to be Anderson, Brayton, and Ronnie Mack versus myself, Maddie, and Rito, and so basically it was scripted, really, like I was going to go last. Those guys probably would have had the lead like they did, and I would have to chase down Ronnie Mack and likely be able to catch him, pass him on the last lap. But when they threw in Wilson, I'm like,
you're like, hey,
he's not even fucking American. And you have there's 3 other Americans
that you could have picked. Like, and fuck all this, we're throwing down.
With the click of a finger, shit got real. And like me and Rito and Medi kind of like, like we all got serious.
Hey,
boys.
1, 2, 3.
So then we started like strategizing and thinking about it more seriously. And then anyway, it was pretty funny because, and I say that this would be an equal, but much less penalizing situation. So Kevin came by and told us all how it was going to work. Well, Anderson clearly didn't hear the rules because you had to. Kevin had the flags, and so when we were lined up, and when the relay was like the second guy was to go, you had to go off of Kevin, not off of where your guy was. So anyway, who went first?
Oh, that's how it was supposed to be, because I didn't get it.
So basically, Jason is sitting on the line and is watching Dino. Dino gets to the up ramp, takes the checkered flag. Jason just pins it.
I wondered what the deal was.
And so Jason's halfway down the start straightaway, and we're like, what the fuck? Like we're all pissed off because we're getting beat, and they've got a ring-in guy who's not even American. And so, instead of him getting a penalty or whatever, Kevin runs over to me and Brayton and just says, hey, to make it even,
go at the same time.
You know, as soon as I drop the flag, both of you go at the same time.
Yeah.
I
wondered
so
what the
essentially,
deal was there.
essentially everybody knows about my mistake down the Shannon Straight, you know, shortcut. But Anderson made one
Ando,
too.
you put on blast, bro.
yeah.
Dude,
We're blasting Ando. But anyway, we won, and for me, I think, you know, I guess that this is growing up, but like I took that point instead of just being happy and thanking people or whatever. Like it was like I took my soapbox a little bit and I took a little, I took a little jab at the donations, you know, thing, whatever. And it's in good Aussie humor, but not everybody gets that.
Yeah,
either people love it or hate it. They're either gonna laugh or be pissed off. There's no in between. My wife, not happy.
That you said it?
Don't worry about the results. We didn't talk from stadium to hotel
because you said the donations thing
off. Yeah.
Really?
She's just like not happy.
Grow up, dickhead.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, should I have said it? Probably not. But it was in my mind, it was in good humor and good fun. But it didn't come across that way. Clearly, my wife didn't think.
Can I tell you? I actually wanted to give you
we can touch on the donation thing because I would like to give my opinion for sure.
So my opinion and the caveat to start this is, I really wish Chad Reed raced Motocross Nations. That's my caveat, right?
Yeah.
And I heard the behind the scenes thing that you kind of put your name forward, and then they just said no, we're good. Basically, like that's what I heard happened. So you did go and you said, hey, I'd like to do this. I'll get ready to do the Muddy Creek thing. And then they still went with the team that was you not on it. Was that correct?
No, that's not correct. So why I was so mad or why I was so disappointed.
I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
I would use the word disappointed. Worse. I was disappointed because I went to the top. I went straight to what's his name? Peter Doyle.
The MA dude, yeah.
He's the CEO of Motorcycling Australia. There's nobody above him at this point. And so I go to him. I know him well. I call him and I say that I want to do donations. I'm working out. I'm in shape. Things are looking good to be on a factory bike. Because at that point, I couldn't confirm whether I was going to be on a factory Suzuki or a factory Honda. Those conversations were happening behind closed doors.
And you can't just go say that shit to anyone. And I can't go
say that to anyone. Although...
You gave him a good indication.
Although he is the CEO of Motorcycling Australia, he's, I don't know if you know Peter, but Peter was, so Peter has a background. He used to be Matt Mladen's crew chief through all Matt Mladen's. That's
pretty cool.
So the guy's, he's a badass dude. He knows the ins and outs of sport, our sport, should I say. Anyway, long story short, I asked to be on a team last year, and basically nobody got back to me, and they announced the team on social media before I even was told no. So I was already pissed off from last year. So then this year, I said, you know what? I want to be on a team. Doesn't matter how mad I am. I want to be on a team. I want it to be my last, because I am at a point in my life where, like, I don't want to be, like, I don't want to do motocross anymore. So I was in shape. I was training, riding, motivated. It was at a track I know very well. 2-hour flight. It all made sense.
Yeah.
They don't have the AIS involved as much as they used to, so the budgeting is much, much more difficult. So bringing
people from Australia to America is harder than you at JGR.
Yeah, exactly. So all things considering, it makes a lot of sense to have me on it. And so my conversation with Peter was, I want this to be my last. I feel like I've represented the country well, better than anybody in my sport. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. And I believe that I am willing to do the effort and put my best foot forward, and I think I'm deserving of that position. And because of the fact that I was willing to work hard, not just because I wanted to come off the couch. And
you were taking it serious.
I took it very serious, like it was me knowing what was happening behind closed doors and what I was doing during the day. So anyway, the conversation was Hunter and myself, and was it going to be basically, it was only ever between, was it going to be Medi or Evans? And so at no point was
Ferris said he was out.
Ferris from the beginning was out.
Yeah.
And probably Ferris announcing so early on that he was out, that allowed me to go, okay,
I'll be the captain of the team, sort of thing.
the team isn't going to be the best Australian team anyway.
Yeah, yep.
You're having, in my opinion, Australia is having an Australian Supercross round on the same weekend, so you shouldn't even really be getting your good Australian riders to donations, because in 2018, nobody should be on a motocross only contract in Australia, in my opinion. So at that point, it makes all sense to have Hunter on the team. I think I could be, equally as good. And Medi at that point I don't think he was contracted to do Supercross. I think he only had motocross or something like that. So anyway,
So it was lining up.
It was all pretty much promised, and at no point did I think that I wasn't on a team. I mean,
so you were fully assuming that you were on the team.
Correct. And I'm talking
I didn't
from
know that
CEO
detail.
to Mark Luksic, big part of the team. My first time in a team in 2000 maybe. Mark's been a part of it from then. Gary Ben, I talked to Burner. Everyone, generally, I was on the team. It was going to be me, Hunter, and whether it was going to be Medi or Evans.
Yeah.
So when and then the funny thing is they called me, which happened to be at midnight, and I was driving home after a test at JGR, and I had a Suzuki in the back, factory Suzuki in the back, driving back to Florida after a really successful test, and basically, and that wasn't, it was public knowledge that because I posted it, that I was testing, but no one knew that I was going to race a national and potentially get ready for donations, and that's what the whole thought process was. So when they call me and tell me, hey, you didn't make the team, and I'm like, fuck, who?
I was on the team.
I was on the team, because I made that very clear to everybody. Like, I'm not calling to put my name in the hat, because and I think that is what really where it all goes wrong. A team should never be voted on. You should just have the best 3 dudes there is. I don't give a shit where they're racing, what bike they're on. Just pick the 3 best guys. That's easy, That's how it's always been.
Take the subjectivity out of it.
Yeah. Like, now they have all this stuff, and they've always had it, but basically politics are taking over, I think, Never. What have I represented? 8, 9, 10 times, whatever it is.
In our only podium.
Yeah. But, in all those times, I've never nominated myself. Like, because technically you're supposed to nominate and go, oh, yeah, put my hand up, throw my name in the hat.
What do they say in Hunger Games?
It's like
I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, it's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. So it's funny that I've never done it, yet I've made a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And then
all of a sudden,
well, you didn't put your name in the hat. That they didn't use that this year. That was last year's one. And I'm like, I've never put my name in the hat, And you've, for the last 16 years, I've probably picked more teams than I have anything else,
Yeah.
So that's what really, really bummed me out, is that everybody was on the same page. I thought, like everyone generally was,
and it was like a blindside.
Yeah, totally blindsided.
Here's what I think you should have done, and I guarantee it would have been different. No one knew that, like, this was all very behind closed doors. And then when you made that post announcement of the team, it was like, it come across to everyone like sour grapes on your end. Mm-hmm. And that's where I was like, because like I said, I wanted Chad Reed on that team for this year. And like, I don't give a fuck if you were fat and like and dog shit.
Yeah,
but if
and
you,
see,
but,
I do.
But no, but in terms of like for me, I'm saying like if he wants to be on that team, that's his team. That's Chad's house. Let's just let Chad have Chad's house. Fair enough. And there's multiple sides to the argument, which I understand. But there's this thing where it's like, hey, Chad might not race next year. This could be a send-off. It's at Redbud. Like, we need to give him this champions send-off. This Australian, fuck yeah, this is Chad's last thing. Like, he deserves that. And whether you're a Chad Reed fan or you're not a Chad Reed fan, I think that everyone could agree that's fair. The problem, I think, and it's hindsight, obviously, but if you come out in like when all this shit started happening and you were like, hey guys, I'm putting in my name in the hat for donations, like fucking tag MA, or you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if there was some kind of like public knowledge before it all happened, because like even, you know, like I grew up with Mitch and I didn't even hear all this stuff from them. So it's like all of this information isn't privy to the general public. Yeah. And I when I saw it go down and I talked to Kerry about it, and I was genuinely bummed. I was like, man, this fucking sucks. Like, this is now a shit situation because
Kerry Hart.
Yeah. And because it was like, actually, it was right when
he started feeling the
I know,
fire,
yeah.
sure.
Well, it was right when we did the podcast together that we were that it all went down.
So the only thing I was disappointed on,
my point, I guess, is I just wish if it was public knowledge at the start, and then I think that there's no way MA could have done that. In my eyes, if you posted, this is going to be my last Motocross of Nations, I'm so excited to, if I get the opportunity, the public support that would have flooded in.
See, but I kind of did a lot of pre-announcement and probably over the month. So I was in communication for at least 4 to 5 weeks with those guys before they announced it, and they were trying to figure out like what they were going to do, and I respected that. It sucks because, you know, like I definitely want to say more my opinion, but I'll take the high road. But I think that they generally were, you know, like I had a very tough Supercross, and so I think everybody was unsure of where I was at physically, mentally, all those things. But
I feel like you've done enough to where, like, if Chad Reed says, I'm going to be at this race, like, you'll be at this race.
But when you have somebody that's the manager of the team, that thinks like a competitor, that doesn't and wasn't ever able to reach that highest level and continue at that level through his 30s, the reality to him is it drops off and you can't do it. And so I think in respect to that, he doesn't believe that I can come back and be who I want to be or who I think I can be. And that's totally okay, because that's his opinion and that's his own way of how he's experienced it. And I'm totally okay with that. But I think that when you talk to somebody at the highest level of the CEO and you explain and there's multiple conversations, like I'm talking where Doyle, like I'm going into massive detail here, but like Doyle runs, the Hall of Fame here in Australia, and there's Hall of Fame talks, and there's, inductee things and post racing. I mean, there's so much to this, and yet when all was said and done, I was blindsided because nobody, I felt that I laid out what I wanted to bring to the table. Like, I wanted to work my ass off. I promised them that I would be on a factory bike because I was working hard on the Suzuki deal, and I had a promise from Honda in Europe that they would supply me a factory bike. So I'm like,
either way we're good.
Either way I'm gonna be on a factory bike, because they were like, okay, well, what equipment are you gonna have? I'm like, I'll have a factory bike. Well, what? I'm like,
Doesn't it matter?
Can't tell you. You know, like that's not the detail that, especially somebody
it's
who,
not a gas.
You know, who is essentially a manager of a competing team and blah blah blah. So it's like you're kind of holding your cards close to you as well. And so I felt like all the conversations and all the things needed to be said were said. My goal was always to contribute in the years that come, you know.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It makes me sad that I'm pissed off, and I wouldn't support Team Australia at this point. Like,
and that to me is that
America needs a replacement.
Yeah.
For Roger DaCosta. I wouldn't mind doing that job.
That'd break my fucking heart, Chad.
And I don't know that I have that thought process.
Think of the children, Chad. Think of the children.
You know, America's been good to me, so. But I'm aware of where I'm from.
You're a real motherfucker like that.
Proud
of
where I'm come from, but that was wrong in my opinion.
I agree as well.
They massively did me wrong, and probably the only thing that I was disappointed. It was never an attack or a disagreement on the team that went.
The riders, yeah.
Like, I couldn't be necessarily happy for them because I was so mad at the organization. But I was happy. I mean, dude, Hunter crushed it. Yeah. You know? Mitch.
That kid's a fucking animal.
Mitch was gnarly, you know? Like, I think...
he's a guy that...
And I don't know, actually... Truthfully, like I don't know these kids either, and I would have loved that.
That's what the shame for me.
For me, it would have been that perfect handoff of like, I obviously Hunter's been around for a while, you know, a few years now, and we've brushed shoulders, but never really said hi and hey, I'm Chad, I'm Hunter,
and like and a guy like Hunter and Mitch, and like I grew up with Mitch, like around the corner, and. They're like, we're the fucking Chad Reed generation, man. And it's like, and it sucks that like Mitch didn't get to experience that being on Chad Reed with Team Australia. Hunter didn't get to experience being on Team Australia.
And maybe
Chad,
they don't care about that.
They would for sure, bro.
Yeah, maybe
like
they do.
1,000,000%, man.
But
1,000,000%.
I'm a fan of racing, and I'm a fan of the next generation, you know? And it would have been a real honor, in my opinion, to go and do my last one. It's so easy to look at hindsight, but it frustrated me when people were worried about how in shape I was and how ready I was, but yet they chose a rider that had been injured for months and hadn't raced in months, and yet that confused me. Like, you can't say one thing and do another because, and this is at no point an attack on Kurt at all. I think Kurt's a badass dude, but Kurt was the massive weak link. Yeah. Like, those guys threw away
a podium.
An easy podium, not a podium.
We could have won, bro. Like,
they literally had a shot at winning. And unfortunately, I have been on so many damn Motocross Nations teams that
have had a chance.
Who have a chance, and only one time have we reached the podium. And I think that new management, new way of looking at it needs to be implemented. Because if you look at the results over the last 20 years, they're all really similar, and we need to approach it differently, I think, in my opinion.
Oh, couldn't agree more.
So that's what made it a bummer for me, because the guys did a killer job. The few comments that I seen, it definitely sounded like Kurt, you know, was feeling the effects of the effects of just not racing. And it's like, I can tell you, for somebody who doesn't race during the nationals and coming out, and that was why I was, you know, they're like, well, you have to race a national. I'm like, well, I'm not just gonna go race a national to prove to you that I can do it, because it has to make sense. Yeah. Because I know what it takes at this level.
Better than anyone, at least in my opinion. But it all has to be. It has to make sense. You know, it's training, it's riding, it's getting the right bike, and the preparation. You don't just show up
off the couch and be successful. That's like at an AMA national that's 100 degrees and humid, you don't come off the couch and it be okay. So I was like working hard, and it was all working towards, and it was like I wasn't gonna do the last national, and then I'm like, no, I'm feeling okay.
Yeah, I could do this.
I think I can suffer for 20 minutes, and the last 10 is gonna be a torture.
Yeah.
But as it worked out, I was actually not bad. Like, I was actually in better shape than I thought I was. The bike was amazing.
You probably got a little bit luckier with the mud too.
Yes and no.
Do you
because without the mud, we would have had like maybe the pace would have been a little faster, and that would have been interesting to experience. But in the mud,
everything just gets heavier and heavier and heavier.
My body was gnarly. Like, I'm talking like, you know, when your boots are at least 10 pounds, 20 pounds heavier than what they should normally be. And like, you know, the ruts were this deep and just trying to get through, and you're holding your feet out.
Your feet up, your
like
hip flexors
my hip flexors and adductors were literally on fire. Like, that whole night I was cramping. Just like, I would be in bed and I'd be like, and my buddy that I was sharing a room with was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And I'm like, dude, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not okay. He's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, just don't do anything. Shut up. But anyway.
Coconut water.
Yeah. But so I definitely had my, you know, like the mud brought a totally different aspect like to it.
6 of one, half a dozen of the
so
other.
I feel like it all would have been about the same, you know. But yeah, it's a shame because
Is there a possibility that, like, with all of this that's gone down and now everyone's had a chance to, like, I feel like if you're MA with what went down, you can't sit there and say, like, no, we did the right thing. You know what I mean? I feel, you know, like, now that hindsight has been, it's over and we can look back at it, like, is there a chance that you can, you know, get in shape and do next year and like, and try and like fix it? And
no, it's not about, for me, it's the
principle of it in the first place, I guess.
Yeah, but the whole reasoning of wanting it to be my last one is that I don't want to do it anymore. You know, like, I don't. Like that part of my, you know, like, yeah, like just that part of life or racing I'm not there anymore.
There's no draw.
Like, I don't. Yeah, it's really, really difficult race to be in shape for. And then the very next weekend you're racing Supercross, and all I race is Supercross. So it's like, it takes so much effort to be ready and prepared for that one-off event, and it's not friendly to Americans at this point, you know, like the American side of it, and the scheduling of the American series is more.
I just fucking wish they'd change the schedule, like, across the board. Like, man, and I say it and I'm fucking beating a dead horse, but like, I was over it. I didn't even fucking ride, bro.
Right.
I would go with cameras and I'd walk around the track and I'd like, it's not the same. And I didn't have to do laps through the week. Like, it's too hard. Like, even the mechanics, man, like, the respect that I've got for the mechanics that are on the AMA circuit.
They
like,
have the gnarly job.
The money that they get paid for the hours that they put in is like, so it's not proportional at all. And it's market value, and I get it, and that's the way it is, and it's expensive enough to run a race team without starting to pay mechanics like for the hours that they should. Like, you couldn't do it. You couldn't run. If you paid a mechanic hourly on like an Australian wage,
an Australian wage,
you'd be fucked.
You
couldn't run a team.
They'd be rich.
You'd be paying like $200,000 a year for mechanics.
At
like,
least.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you know, just for me and my experience of living there and doing that circuit and being on that scene, like, it's too hard. It's too much. And then, yeah, like the whole thing is crazy. And then to expect that the human body can even keep up with that, and then you add the impacts, and then you add the concussions, and then you add the niggling injury. It's like, dude, it's no joke, and it's too many races. And and man, me and Hammer have had that conversation so many times. Like you're anomaly at 36, and there's LaRocco and K-Dub, but like we lose Dungey at 27, we lose Ryan at 26, we lost Ricky at 27, and it's like this whole intensity and this new thing, and it's like it's just cost dudes 5 years, and we've had this 5-year shift of retiring. And it's like it's not enough time to make Marvin and Eli these fucking superstars that pass the torch. Yeah. Like when you go, like you're the last OG superstar.
And I don't think it gets better anytime soon.
It doesn't,
like
man.
when you're talking about, when we're on the Motocross the Nations, conversation here, and you talk about the Europeans and the Americans and stuff like that. Like if I'm Eli, AP, and Barsha, I'd never represent the country again because of the
they got stitched up.
Well, the sheer backlash that you get from the fans and the way social media works. Everybody has a soapbox because literally they can jump on their smartphone
can DM you and comment.
Just comment on whatever it is. And I just think it's so unfair to ask a lot from athletes that have done the schedule that we've done, and then you get 1 month off from motocross in the end of August until, what was it, the 3rd or 4th of October.
Yeah.
So you literally got the whole month of September off. You can't, it's unrealistic, and it's just ridiculously to expect those 3 riders to take that 1 month and work their absolute ass off to be the same guy that left off in August at Ironman. Because that 1 month is the only month, which actually 1 month is really only a week or 2 weeks. Let's be honest, it's 2 weeks. They go, okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks off. I'm exhausted. Eli's pissed off at the world. He won the most races in Supercross, threw away a championship, came out, won the motocross, didn't really win it in the way that he wanted to win it probably. Went down to the wire where it should never went down to the wire.
Yeah, he should have wrapped that thing up at like round 3.
So he's kind of like, okay, 2018's over. I got this badass new bike coming. Monster wants you to do promo for winning championship. Monster wants you to win, do all this. Cowie wants you to do this. Outpoint Star wants you to do that. It's never ending. And all in between that, you're trying to take a step away and get a breath of fresh air.
Be a normal person for like 2 weeks.
And be a normal individual. Enjoy your mom and dad, your girlfriend, your whatever. He's a hunter. Maybe he wants to go hunting. That's hunting season. I don't know. And I just think it's really, really unfair to expect an athlete not to take off a month like the rest of us get, like I shouldn't throw myself in it because I get the whole summer off, but everybody that does not do Motocross to Nations gets to utilize that gap,
and that adds to next year,
and nothing from August till January 7th, 8th, whatever Anaheim 1 is, nothing matters. Literally nothing matters, because look, you could see where the effort was. 1 week later, the dude comes out and crushes it and wins all 3 races and is $1 million richer.
How's the random guy that won the $1 million?
Oh, the fan.
What?
Right?
Are you
I wish
serious?
it was that. Yeah, I mean, how do we get on
Why
that
did
program?
I not go to that? I went there a bunch of times. I never got shit.
So for me, I just think it's so unfair to think, because if I look at all the riders and you look at the team, do I take, and this is me in my honest opinion, and people will disagree, but as a team, do I take AP or Hunter? I take AP all day. He's rode the track 1 million times. He's amazing in the ruts. He's amazing in the mud. Like, probably literally one of the best riders in the mud is AP. Yet he shows up to the Nations and forgets how to ride in the mud. So, like, when you think of the outstanding performers, Hunter massively overperforms. Rather than underperforms in. So here you go. You got AP massively underperforms to his normal thing, then if you were to put Justin Barcia in muddy conditions, sand conditions, starting, all these things up against Coldenhoff, I take Barcia all day long, because Coldenhoff didn't even get a podium this year, I don't believe. Maybe he got a podium in a moto, but never an overall. And yet Coldenhoff comes out and is the overperformer of the weekend, beats his own teammate who is the greatest rider in the world. I so you go, okay, what the fuck just happened? And then, you think, okay, I'd put Eli up against Jeffro in those conditions and on his own track. And the boys just did not perform. And I think that when you look at why they didn't perform, I just think that it's fair, And is it right? No, but dude, those dudes raced the week before and they jumped on a plane and they just carry
business as usual.
You just business as usual, and you carry momentum. And what a lot of people don't understand, when you do donations, and I don't care whether it's at Budds Creek or it's at Redbud, 95% of those people, or maybe even 98, whatever the percentage,
it's
guy,
going for America.
But literally 95% of the people riding on that racetrack are GP guys. You only have, the 3 Americans that are an American base riders, and then maybe one on the Australian team, which has been me in the past, maybe 2 of us from Australia. So you probably got 5 people that are from AMA. The other, 35 or 36 people are GP guys. So they ride at the GP style. So that track doesn't develop anywhere near what you're used to it developing.
Yeah, that's true, man. So and you think like the lines are so
way different. The way the Americans
have
ride.
You felt that at other places?
Oh, dude, when I go to donations, it's a tough weekend. Like, it's really, really tough, because your bike, you fight your bike the whole weekend, because it's set up for AMA, And I would like, Jeffrey has shown up and, he did well last year at Ironman.
There's an asterisk there, because Eli was just trying to get it done and win the title.
I agree.
Eli ain't gonna fucking send it to beat Hurlings. He don't care. He wants that $1 million fucking bonus, bro.
And I honestly think that Marvin threw it away more than anything, because
that was crazy.
That was crazy. But I've rode Ironman twice now, or 3 times now. It's as close to any European track that we have. Like, I mean, if you're a European, dude, show up there, because that is a European track.
Even more than Dilla?
Yeah. Dilla's not super Euro, I don't think, anymore. It's really ruddy. It's different. Okay. Yeah. Like, Dilla used to get real flowing and kind of outside, inside, really European. Because that's what the Euro guys are all momentum, like they only ride motocross and they ride a lot of sand in the winter,
and then you have to carry
have to carry speed. Everything starts on the outside, it comes across, you carry through the middle, and then you like, it's all like that. America, we 9-10 months of the year, all we care about is Supercross, stiff ass suspension. Our motocross tracks are ridiculously deep and watered and muddy, so literally from start to finish they're like riding in the mud anyway. So you just have these motorcycles that don't work in bumps, and they just, you pin it down the inside, you brake heavy, you jump in a rut, and you accelerate off, and that's the style that we have become accustomed to. And I just think that the Euros have a different way of riding motocross, and they always,
and because the majority Euros, they're developing the lines around the way that they ride. I've never thought of that.
And then
I feel like I got a black belt in motocross, and I've never thought about that.
Did you go to the race?
No, I didn't go this year. I can't go back to America for a bit.
But I watched the event, and I've never, in my 17 years of being in America, I've never seen Redbud look like that.
Yeah, it looked different, eh?
Oh, it's totally different.
Because, you can recognize...
So talk about, taking a home court advantage away.
And just pissing it in the wind.
Yeah.
It probably did it worse, because they went there with, an expectation, and then when they got there and the expectation wasn't met, they were like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And I think Eli started off on the wrong foot, you know. Like I think that, you know, APH shit in the qualifier, and from what I understand on the inside, didn't really feel himself, or he was, you know, fucked up his shoulder. Eli, you know, probably starts off all excited and it's all fun and new, and then suddenly your bike breaks and you're pissed off at the world. And
yeah,
you
it's like, get me out of
12th gate pick and 34th gate pick or whatever it is.
Turns into a long ass day.
That turns into a real shitty day real quick. So I actually felt really sad for those guys.
Well, hey, I know you've been here like a really long time, probably longer than you thought. So I'll be able to let you get back to life as Chad Reed. Dude, I really appreciate it. I hope you had fun. I hope it's different to what people normally make you do. And for me, like I said, it was always this thing where it was like I never got to talk. I never got to like hear your side of things, and feel like you were always giving us just enough to like, you know, either that love or hate thing, and to sit down and to do this was super cool. And you've been the most requested person by far. Like I literally get 3 DMs a day, and
that's
I'm not joking, of like, get Chad Reed.
I want to add one thing that I always get asked.
Yeah, add whatever you want.
And I think it's important for the core fan to understand me from a different, or at least open their mind up to something different, and then maybe an Aussie rider that's listening that would think about something a little different. And I think that a common thing that I get in Aussie is always, you know, like they assume or they think that you just become an American. And I would say my answer to that would be, when I left, and at 36 years old, and probably fresh off of, you know, this week and spending time, and just, you know, like through this whole podcast, I've been more just, you're in a different space. You're aware of things that you were never aware of as a kid. You're aware of taking on and seeing and feeling all these things that you used to have. Yesterday I went to the football, you know, the local footy.
Yeah, I saw your Instagram
and went to the gym, and you know, and it's like, that was fun. And it's like today and Monday I went to the beach, and it's like that's what I grew up doing. Like training for me wasn't this crazy training facility that you had to be this, that, and whatever. It was motivating your own ass, getting in a car, driving down to the beach, and going running on the beach, or driving to Stockton and going running on the dunes.
The dunes, yeah.
You know, all these things. And I think that it's funny. And last week we landed in the US on Tuesday, and we were there to Sunday, and it's amazing to me how beautiful Sydney is. Yeah. And I'm like,
dude, I had that exact thing yesterday.
You know,
bro.
like I'm like, dude, it's badass. Like I think it's a beautiful city, you know, and the view I had, and it was like I could live here. And I never let myself believe or think that I was missing out on anything, you know? Like I left young enough that I was like, fuck Australia. It'll always be there if I go back. And, you know, and I always embraced America, because most everybody that I know always has something that they hate about America, and they're stuck on it. And I don't have that, and I'm still there, and it's still providing me life and a job and a career and all these things. And that's where I always wanted to be. And I think that you have to embrace where you are, or where you want to be, or where the, you know, how would I say it? Like where the things are that you want in life. Yeah. And so for me, it wasn't that I became an American or I took on the accent or whatever. I mean, technically, I've actually lived in America longer than I have Australia now, which is crazy to me.
Dude, yeah.
But yeah, like I would just want people to know that like I'm so unbelievably Australian and thankful for what I grew up with. But you had to turn it off. Like I couldn't miss it. I couldn't think about it. I couldn't like want to be home.
Dude,
because you
totally
don't like
it.
When you live that schedule, you don't have the luxury of like, shit, I'm homesick, I'm gonna go home.
Dude, you know what? The whole time I was there, I did, like, what you're saying is really resonating, because I fucking never let go of Australia.
Yeah.
And right now that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And I watched
my cousin do it. I watched McFarlane do it, and I seen the big mistakes.
Bro, fuck, you're blowing my mind right now.
And I just think that, like, for me, this is the raddest, most beautiful country in the world. I'm very aware of that. But you have to kind of turn it off. If you're aware of that all the time, you're going to miss. Yeah, it's crazy because then you miss it. And
dude, I was torn the whole time I lived there, man. Like, and I found that one thing to hate about America. And I found multiple things. And, like, man, you can ask anyone that knows me from over there. Like, Wes would get so sick of me, like, complaining about shit and saying how Australia's, but I never let go of it, man. And I didn't last. And I lasted longer than almost everybody else.
Totally.
Jay's still over there.
Yeah.
But it was like me and Jay were like the last ones that went.
So that's my only real comment.
You know what? I really appreciate and respect that.
That I would pass on is though, like, I'm so appreciative of what America is, because America's taken me on. It's given me a life. I'm a dual citizen. I've lived there now longer than I have here. And I think that, in my opinion, the two most beautiful countries in the world is Australia and America. I love them to death. You know, like, America has provided me so much, you know, like things where post racing will give me that luxury of living in both countries and being able to do things in both countries. So, yeah, I just wanted people to understand that though I come across as somebody who massively loves and embraces America, it's because I truly do. You have to
get through it.
Yeah, like, I have taken it on as my own country and as a country that I do choose to live. And until that day that I say, okay, I'm done here, it's time to go home, I feel like I have to embrace the American culture. And as an adult, I actually am far more aware and know living and life in America than I do here, because my childhood was here, but not. I left at 18. Yeah. I've never owned. Well, actually, I shouldn't say never. I did have an apartment here for a while, but, like, I've never really owned houses and cars and things like that. Like, I actually would come. There'd be such a learning curve of how do you live as a grown adult in Australia. You know, like, it would actually be tough. So, just give people a little, you know. Man,
I've never thought of it, but that just, like, made some shit click in my own head, because I never let go. I never let go of Australia, and I could never fully embrace it. And there was always this pull home, and that's because I never cut those ties. And I had such a romance for Australia, and the whole time I was in America, and a day that would go shit, I would instantly just be like, fuck this place. Like, home's got, this is so much better home. This is, and I, you know what? I really, and it was one thing I thought, I was like, I wonder why they went there. And Chad seems like he turns his back on Australia, but it's like, he doesn't embrace Australia like I want him to as an Australian. But it makes sense, because you had a job at hand and you can't afford distractions, and being homesick is a fucking hell of a distraction.
It's really a big, and I think that second that you miss it or need it, it's over, because then you have to let it go and you have to come back home, because your heart and head is there, you know? So that's been my way of just making it work in the US, you know? So, dude,
makes so much sense. Thank you so much for doing this, man. I really enjoyed it, man.
Welcome.
Big time. Sweet.